activate the old switcheroo.
Well, the switcheroo has been activated.
Nice.
So with that, everyone, welcome to another episode of What's Up. It's been basically more than 2 weeks since we've had one of these because, you know, time and space shenanigans.
Yeah, we finally managed to get caught up on our FGO Lost Belt 6 coverage. Even then, we're a little behind, though. I don't know how many people are actually done with Act 2. Some of y'all are monsters, demons, devils. But we're actually having a What's Up, yay!
Woo!
Coming to you live from our front lawn of Crow HQ.
Yeah,
The Crow Q, if you will.
Summer version now.
Yeah, I can see that. The theme worked. It's very nice.
It's almost done. I still got a couple things I need to pick up, but for the most part, no. There's a festival in our front yard. I wish I could just have fireworks going off at all the time.
Yeah, that's
You can buy like little things and you can throw them up in the air, but
yeah, I'm sure that's like the little cosmetic seals you can do to have a thing appear over your head, or the fucking bottles of Eorzea Red.
hey,
I
listen.
still have like 99 of those in my Chocobo saddlebags.
Listen, sometimes you just need to fucking, spray the champagne.
No, I understand. That's why they're still in my Chocobo saddlebags. I didn't get rid of them. I just don't need them in my main inventory. But yeah, we're going.
Yep, as you can tell, this is not Final Fantasy 16. This is Final Fantasy 14. It's like 16 except -2.
I mean, listen, you're not wrong. In more ways than one. Lucky, has your copy left Missouri yet?
Yes, it has left Missouri. It's in Kent, which is in Washington, but then it has left Kent, and now it is in the Nebulous Void. I don't know where it is now.
Who is delivering it?
It's still an Amazon system at the moment.
Okay. Then you might actually get it tomorrow.
I might.
Because if it was... Mine came USPS, but that's because of where I live. There is a, major post office distribution center and a major Amazon distribution center that are pretty close. So it's just, not that I'm really close to that, because a lot of people forget how long Florida is, but both of those are located in roughly the Tampa area, which is one of the closer big cities to me.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, yeah, we handed it off to the USPS, yesterday. It got to you. It's still technically a day late because all of us pre-ordered it with Amazon saying, oh yeah, you'll get it release day.
I didn't. I don't think I ever got it saying it was release day. It always said the 26th, which always freaked me out.
That's really weird, yeah.
Because,
I at least got we'll try and get it to you on release day, and then when they actually, solidified the date, it was it's Friday? I'm like, that doesn't sound too bad.
No,
yeah, Amazon is weird.
I ordered it so long ago that I can't use the 3 months ago tabs in my orders. I actually have to pull up all of 2023 to go back to February. Because that's when I pre-ordered it. And
they can't even get you your copy.
This is the thing that was bugging me. It's all where was this copy before all this? Where do these games get made? And Lucky was just 10 minutes ago laying on his bed being like, all right, so they need the plastic for the cases, the plastic for the slip, the plastic for whatever the insert is, then the discs, and then they got to get whatever's printed on the disc. I'm like, how many fucking steps in this? Where does this happen? Where does it get assembled?
You also got the physical deluxe, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, so
that comes in a second cardboard box because it has the regular case, the steelbook, lovely steelbook by the way, my first PS5 steelbook, it's nice, and a little cloth map which is in itself in a little plastic wrapper.
So I'm just
a little plastic baggie. So yeah, I don't know. Somebody had to assemble that and shrink wrap it.
So I'm just all where?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the only way I can think of this makes sense is that the moment you ordered it, Amazon attached your order to a specific piece of inventory, and that piece of inventory somehow ended up in Missouri, because otherwise this doesn't make any goddamn sense. You'd think they would just be like, oh, we've got a customer who's pre-ordering this thing that we don't fucking have, by the way, because that was months before that went gold, before the masters were made. So arguably the thing you ordered didn't exist yet when you ordered it, in any real sense. But you'd think they'd just be like, okay, we got a customer in Washington State who wants this thing. We'll put it down, and we'll make sure that we'll have X number of copies in Washington State. And that's not what happens.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I understand warehousing is weird, but yeah, it's all over the place. So yeah, we haven't had What's Up in like 3-ish weeks, so we're probably going to be all over the place catching up on this. I have not taken like notes about anything, so I think we're just going to have to hit it off the cuff.
I didn't even think about what I was going to talk about. I am just 120% mad.
Well, there's been like 5 billion bits of video game news, because it was technically like all these past couple weeks have still been on the Summer Game Fest tail end.
True.
I don't think I would say Summer Game Fest ended until arguably this week, because Nintendo managed to cram one more Direct in there. And what a hell of a Direct it was, too. Fucking Pikmin 4, they're releasing Pikmin 1 and 2. They're remastering the Super Mario RPG, which was last seen on the Super Nintendo.
That was bad. That shook me a little bit.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's a lot of news coming out about that, too. Like, it's a proper, they got Square Enix back involved. They've managed to get Yoko Shimomura back for the music.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, in case you didn't know, the Super Mario RPG, Shimomura did the music. I think that would have been fairly early in her career as well with Square. But yeah, no, so, like, that's pretty cool. But, oh, yeah, by the way, hey, if you like regular-ass Mario games, they announced basically 2 of those. There is no detail, but they announced there will be a Princess Peach game for Switch. And also, Super Mario Wonder, I think is the subtitle?
Yes. Super Mario Drug Trip.
Yeah, Mario has often been fucking trippy as hell. I mean, it doesn't help that canonically Super Mario's 2 was all just a dream, and Super Mario Brothers 3 was just a play. It was literally a stage play. But it's always been weird. It seems like with Wonder, they're fucking leaning into it. You can become Elephant Mario. It's weird. But I'll take it, you know? Fucking... I have a copy of Super Mario All-Stars for the SNES, man. Those games are solid. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, so, like, arguably they had a banger of a presser. It's sad to admit, but I think the worst event in this sequence was honestly the PlayStation one, but that was because it was just a bunch of concept trailers for games that aren't real yet. And unfortunately, they didn't really do a lot to get people psyched up about the other stuff. Which is a shame, but, I mean, I don't know. That might be some of Jeff Keighley's dark magic. Because technically, I think we learned more about PS5 exclusives at the actual Summer Games Fest event, because there was a release date for Spider-Man, and there was a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer, right? Mm-hmm. So, shout out to Sony, I guess, for you know, especially for Insomniac. That's a full-blown first-party studio for being willing to, like, shoot themselves in the foot and let Jeff have that one. But yeah, it's wild. Like I can if you want me to like cover the highlights, I've got the list of like this year's video game releases pulled up. We can just start running down chronologically with some stuff, because there's all kinds of news. Chat, if you were hoping to have a break, you won't. You're fucked. July is like your one break month unless you are into very specific video games, because that's still Pikmin 4. July 21st. Exoprimal also comes out, but that's kind of still up in the airs. Let's see. Yeah, pretty. That seems to be the biggest one. No, I shouldn't undersell it. There's also, I think this is a brand new release, right? Yes. Legend of Heroes Trails and Reverie is also coming out that month. People will be into that one. But it's not. It doesn't have any big tentpole releases. August is being held down by Armored Core 6. That's right. That's only 2 months away. And there's also still some other good releases in there as well. I know, like, certain circles of people are really excited for Goodbye Volcano High. It's also where Baldur's Gate 3 comes out. Late August. Let's see, anything else? That's when Immortals of Avium comes out. We're going to see if that game is worth anything. Listen, we'll see. Like I said, I'm not opposed to games being good. It just doesn't look too good. But we'll see. September is honestly packed.
Way too packed.
Yeah, like we already thought it was going to be bad when that's when they decided to lock in the Starfield date. That's still September 6th. It's still all over the place. Rune Factory 3 Special on the Switch, September 5th. Lies of P, September 19th. Also, same day, Mortal Kombat 1. And then only 2 days later, on September 21st, also Eternites, handholding RPG.
I'm excited that one.
Yeah, but you're gonna have a problem, Lucky, because literally that same day, Payday 3.
Son of a bitch!
Yep, literal same day. So both September 21st. I know, it's crazy. Also, by the way, they're releasing a fuck ton of Dragon Quest games this year. Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest Adventures of Die. I think I saw some other ones in there. But yeah, so September is like got lots of really big game releases for lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
October is also getting pretty jammed up. A game Nintendo announced at that Direct, Detective Pikachu Returns, literally. That's what it's called on Switch. That's going to be Assassin's Creed Mirage, if you're into that.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Lords of the Fallen. That'll be early in October. Also fairly mid-October. Alan Wake 2, October 17th. Spider-Man 2, October 20th. Also, once again, just letting you know, like, we may or may not discuss some things about the direction of the console war as it's going right now. Lots of interesting stuff happening there, and people being opinionated. Let it not be said that Nintendo's not afraid to square up. Literal same day as Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Nintendo's like, yeah, do you have a PS5 and a Switch? Well, that's your problem, buddy.
I do have a PS5
And yes,
and
it
a
is my
Switch.
problem.
Yeah.
And then a mere 4 days later, October 24th, City Skylines 2, if people are interested in that one. And also, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 is going to be October 24th. I know, it's fucking crazy. October's super busy. November's got a few decent ones locked in. Like I said, Nintendo was really super killing it. They've got a new WarioWare game announced. That's coming out in November. November 9th is Like a Dragon Gaiden: The Man Who Erased His Name. And also in November, that is going to be when Super Mario RPG Remaster comes out. And on the same day, on November 17th, Persona 5 Tactica. Which looks interesting. I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye on what they're going for there. Because, like, I am not necessarily super drawn in by their more chibi art style they've done for some Persona spin-offs. It's like, okay, but SMT games have a very distinct art style anyway that I'm a bigger fan of. And they did already say that a couple of characters are going to be, you know, DLC like day one. So I'm kind of like, all right, well, we'll see how this shakes out, I think, before reviews. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff coming out. December, luckily, is pretty free and clear. I think the only thing super announced is, like I said, there's Dragon Quest Monsters and also that Avatar game, Frontiers of Pandora, which is trying really hard to make you think it's like a real big budget contender of a game, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay. I'm sure it'll sell a shitload of copies because Avatar is one of those weird pop culture franchises where, like, I don't actually know how super die-hard people are for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's James Cameron, and it's a big sci-fi blockbuster, so people will go see it just to go see it. Honestly, I think a lot of people saw Avatar 2 ironically.
Maybe.
Like, I'm not kidding. They saw it to go root for the humans. Because those movies are really weird. But, you know, the first one looked nice, so I remember seeing that, and I saw that with the 3D glasses and everything. Mm-hmm. Very pretty, very cutting edge. So, like, I'm sure people will go, ooh, Avatar video game. Does it look like the movies? Yeah, it does. Okay, cool, you know? But I don't know if that's going to be as big of a strikeout as they're thinking with that marketing. And God, there's still also so many games that are announced that are supposed to come out this year. Fucking Helldivers 2 is supposed to be this year.
I'm excited for that one too.
Yeah, it looks nice. Let me see, what else? What else we got here that's supposed to be this year? Allegedly, Ever Crisis is going to come out this year.
Wait, Ever Crisis?
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis.
Oh, Ever Crisis. Okay.
Yeah. Crisis, yeah, Ever Crisis. Supposedly coming out. Let me see. Ooh, is Vanishers of Ghost of New Eden supposed to be this year? Well, good luck with that, guys. The game looks neat, at least. Oh, and also I forgot to count this. First of all, shame on this list. I don't think this has been updated. Fate Samurai Remnant's not on here. How dare. That's also September. And I think is September also when Phantom Liberty is supposed to drop? I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah, September is a killer of a month.
Oh, man, I am...
Talos 2 is supposed to come out this year?
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. As much as I think that game looks neat, I don't know if it's actually coming out this year. But allegedly, Stellar Blade is supposed to come out this year too. We didn't see anything from them at our last PlayStation, present. So I don't actually know where they're at in dev wise. Sony usually has a pretty good track record of giving their devs the time they need to breathe. There are very famous stories of stuff with certain Uncharted games and some of the others where I think it was for Uncharted 4. They called up Sony and were like, "Hey, we need more time," and they were like, "Okay, how much you need? A month?" They were gonna ask for 2 weeks extra, and Sony was just straight up like, "You need another month?" And they were like, "Okay, we'll take it." Sure.
Done and done. Sorry,
So, yeah,
I'm helping people with mechanics, so I am a little distracted here.
That's okay. I just realized that. There we go. The backdrop was delaying a little because I was gonna be like, I was looking at you adjusting the portrait, and I'm like, hold on, that doesn't seem right.
I still don't understand what's up with YouTube's stream thing going on here.
Yeah, the stream preview on our own end, mind you. I have the preview open in our studio, which is supposed to be where we manage the stream. It lags sometimes, and it's not just because Lucky and I are both in the studio. When I do fail portrayal runs and stuff, because that's just all me at the PC anyway, it also lags. Maybe it's because I tab out. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's not a huge deal, but it does sometimes mean that I'm like, oh wait, hold on, Lucky's talking about something that I don't see. I gotta scooch it around. Oh, we've been going for 20 minutes. To let you know how much we got to talk about. I forgot. I should say the picture intro.
Probably.
Hey, while Lucky's doing mechanics, I do want to remind you this episode is still brought to you by our lovely patrons, like Adam DeHart, Black G, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, Ferris, Fight Says, Jeremy Vasquez, JDV 9000, Justin Thay, John Sedwell, Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Regent Raptor, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Robin, Trevor, Trumpire, some guy named Bob, and Baron the Crow. And that if you want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. Thank you very much for your support. Glad. But yeah, there's just so much video game stuff percolating. And honestly, a decent number of rumors, newsers, and speculation as well. For instance, so Metal Gear Solid, right? Volume 1 of Master Collection, gonna come out. It's gonna come out this year. It's going to be the first 3 Metal Gear Solids in their original state, so regular ass Metal Gear Solid, not Twin Snakes, 2, 3, etc. It's also going to include Metal Gear 1 and 2. Let me actually double check the other extras as well. From Konami. Nope, they've got a new gate involved. Here we go. PlayStation Store. That also works. Metal Gear Collection number 1. What do we got here? Okay. The titles. Metal Gear, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid, including VR missions and special missions, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, the HD Collection version, Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, the HD Collection edition. They specifically have they mark Metal Gear as also a separate title for the NES Famicom version, and Snake's Revenge. It will also include Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2, the digital graphic novels, and the book versions of all the screenplays and master books, and a digital soundtrack for Metal Gear Solid, the original one. So, packed with extra content. Ooh. Oh, shit. Sorry, I'm looking at the pre-orders. If you specifically pre-order, you get 3 extra tracks of music.
Ugh.
You get The Best Is Yet to Come, Can't Say Goodbye to Yesterday, and Snake Eater. All 3 of ours are remasters for the Master Collection. I'm like, ooh, I do like those songs. But yeah, so all that's a pretty in-depth collection, and as always, there's a lot of speculation about what will be in Volume 2, right? This is only Volume 1, and it's the very obvious one. You know, it's the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games, and the original Metal Gear games as well, the extras. So it tracks that it's, you know, fairly solid and people do be wanting it. But there's a lot of rumors going on about Volume 2. And the internet, as always, seems to be about two minds on this. Because I have heard some people, some of whom I know actually, like, not necessarily directly in, like, the programming or anything, but who work in video game development are like, I'm not counting on Metal Gear Solid 4, you know, because it's got that unique PS3 architecture. I don't know if Konami is going to be invested in porting that. On the other hand, Konami has not been shy. They've been showing, like, the timeline of Metal Gear and stuff, and explicitly calling out Metal Gear Solid 4. And graphically, the way this timeline is designed, if you've seen it on the internet, anybody, it's like the timeline is a diagonal split across the image, and all the Volume 1 games are on one side, and then Metal Gear Solid 4 and both Metal Gear Solid 5s are, like, on the other side. So a lot of people have been taking this as, like, speculation of, like, oh, well, they're openly acknowledging Metal Gear Solid 4 and they're putting it, like, in a box with 5. Does that mean we're going to get, you know, is that going to be Volume 2? Which some outlets on the internet have run away with, calling it a quote-unquote leak. It is not a leak. It is a speculation. It is not an unreasonable speculation, but let's be realistic here. It's just they did a cool graphic design. Now, me personally, while I understand the argument, you know, Metal Gear Solid 4 has never been ported or HD updated or anything like that, so that doesn't mean that Konami would have to do all new work on it. And I understand. I can understand thinking Konami would not do that. They don't always have the best track record with video games. But they do have a new studio they're working on. You know, they've kind of revamping their video game production, so I'm not saying they don't have the facilities. And just my personal takeaway is, like, if you're going to the trouble of doing this, right? If you're going to the trouble of being like, hey, we're Konami, we still own the Metal Gear Solid IP and the backlog, we're going to bring it back. Basically, chat, the logic of it, which game do you have that is already the most inaccessible, which is the most available to brand new markets? It's 4. 4 has been isolated, stuck on the PS3. You can't say that that's not going to be in demand and be able to reach a whole new audience and be able to make your money back on any costs it takes for porting it. Obviously, like, there will probably be difficulties, but it's 4. 4 is the one that's the most inaccessible. Obviously, like, 2 and 3 were taken off of, like, Steam and other workplaces because they had licensing agreements with the stock footage that fell through. But those games were available on, like, PC and stuff previously. Let's see. Was the HD collection available on PS4? Or I don't remember.
I thought it was 3.
Yeah. It's definitely for 3. But barring PlayStation's problems with backwards compatibility, if it was available on Steam and on Xbox, that means that Steam and Xbox users could still have accessed it until, again, the thing with the stock footage, which was dumb, and we all know it's dumb. But, you know, they were doing a different thing. They were in a different place as far as their, like, business plan were. It seems like we are doing a different business strategy because we're straight up remaking Metal Gear Solid 3, and, you know, we're re-releasing all the old games, including the NES games, which are kind of weird. So, like, I just don't know, like, it seems like the whole reason why you would market it as Volume 2 and not just do a definitive, like, re-release of the quote-unquote HD collection is because you want to leave the door open that you can port 4 and re-release 4. Like, I don't know. It seems like it makes sense. Because I'm going to be real. A lot of people are like, oh, they'll re-release, you know, 5. Why? Why would they re-release 5? They're not going to add the cut content from Act 3. That would require them to either make shit up that Hideo Kojima didn't see or get him back. And if you think Konami's not gonna bother with porting 4, they're not doing anything additional for 5, buddy. I'm sorry. they're not gonna quote unquote fix the ending of 5.
Oh man, what if we actually could get a Metal Gear Solid 5 director's cut?
Oh my, that would be a coup. But Konami would have to literally like have fired every single person out there to like, I think, to get Kojima back for that. Or again, they would have to like rewrite it without him. But I don't think that's possible. But it would be interesting for sure. I mean, that would bring that game up a lot in a lot of people's eyes, I think, because we all as Metal Gear Solid 5 is weird, y'all. It just kind of ends, and literally the game as released doesn't address a very big plot hook. And there are data mined cutscenes for what it's supposed to be about that it just didn't get into, so it's weird, y'all. It's very weird. All I know is that Huey Emmerich sucks, and he gets what he deserves. Anyway, but like the other thing is about Metal Gear Solid 5. Well, I mean, actually no, I know for a fact because I've stuck the disc in. Phantom Pain's on PS4, which means it's also on PS5. You just put your discs in. It's on Steam, pretty sure. You know, it's backwards compatible on Xboxes. There's no need to re-release that game. It runs on modern technology. You can run it on your modern consoles. So, like, obviously that does not necessarily stop game developers from re-releasing games they have already released to make you buy them again. That's nothing new. But, like, there's no market value in a collection that adds Metal Gear Solid 5. You can just buy Metal Gear Solid 5. I mean, it might be interesting to get them to bundle, you know, Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes together, but it's not needed. So yeah, like it does not make sense to me when I see people saying in the same, you know, breath, basically, oh, well, I don't think they're going to polish Metal Gear Solid 4, but, you know, the second volume of the Master Collection will include 5. What? That doesn't make any sense. I still don't know for sure if they're going to do 4. It's just people saying there's, like, no way they would do 4 is, like, I don't know. That I think, to me, screams like the big coup, right?
Yeah, no.
Like, unless Sony somehow does own the rights to that one in perpetuity, which I don't think they do because they did not collab on it. They just paid for it to be exclusive, and that just made it very weird. It's not like Bloodborne, right, where actual Sony PlayStation Studios helped develop that game. There's no reason not to re-release it, and it don't seem right.
Everyone can have this, you know, discussion and thoughts. I'm just gonna be sitting here in the back, is like, I can't wait for Acid 1 and Acid 2.
Oh, I hope so. And I mean, the fact that they're doing Metal Gear 2, and Snake's Revenge, separately, all on that one makes me go, oh, okay.
We're getting
like,
all the weird
I wouldn't be
stuff.
surprised if the bonus games on Volume 2 is like, you know, obviously, probably the HD collection version of Peace Walker because that exists and they haven't released it yet.
Portable Ops and Portable Ops Plus.
Yeah, Portable Ops, Acid, Peace Walker, and hopefully 4. That, or they admit they're going to do a Volume 3. I don't know. Maybe they will. There's a lot of Metal Gear games, guys.
Honestly, like,
There's a GBA game. Ghost Babel. People forget about that one.
it's a weird one.
I know it is, but, you know, it still exists.
It exists, but it's weird. But no, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is one of the test on the water things. If, like, maybe this collection does well enough, maybe they'll be like, okay, maybe we should go talk to Kojima. Maybe, I don't know. Because, like, I do think you are correct. Like, as Metal Gear Solid 5 stands right now, there is no actual value in re-releasing it. But if they were able to, you know, patch things with Kojima and, you know, maybe collab with Kojima Productions to, you know, finish it up, I won't use the word remake. That's
no, because presumably the first 2 acts would be fine.
Yeah. But, you know, go back over it and, you know, finish it up, polish it up, and maybe, you know, maybe change some things that they wanted to fix in the first place but couldn't. Yeah, I can see that happening, but I think the only reason Konami would do that is if there is a vested interest in the Metal Gear franchise as a whole. Which like I said, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in their boardroom meetings, but something like this is a good way to gauge, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Consumer interest.
Consumer interest. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
This is a test to see if the market is there. And obviously, a little bit of, I think, is priming the pump for the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, Metal Gear Delta, because we don't know when the fuck that's coming out. We're probably like 2 years away from that game.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like people forget these projects. They don't happen quickly and suddenly. Like, if they do decide to do this, it's something that's like years in the making.
Yeah. Well, and also, hey, speaking of like working with Kojima Productions, they're in the middle. They're deep in production for Death Stranding 2.
Mm-hmm.
And allegedly, Kojima Productions is working on something for Xbox Studios.
Yeah.
Allegedly. The fact that he moved on to Death Stranding 2 before that went anywhere makes me wonder, like, how that's actually working. But that's probably just another piece in the continual proxy war between Xbox and PlayStation.
It's very strange.
Which has been very interesting this past week because the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is actually having their hearings about the Xbox ABK acquisition. And it's interesting. I don't want to say there's like a clear winner or loser, but for I think one of the few times in my life, I want to give a shout out to the FTC. They seem to be asking the questions that I personally would have asked. Because it seems like in general, the vibe I'm getting from people like quoting the hearings and tweeting about them is the FTC regulators are literally asking Phil Spencer and Matt Booty and the Xbox guys, like, hey, so you said you don't need to make your games exclusive, but then when you bought Bethesda, you literally made all their games exclusive. What's up with that? Because I'm not going to call Phil Spencer a liar, but I'm not saying he's a truth teller. He is a very experienced businessman who is very good at saying things that are technically correct, like not lying to you, but also not telling you what he's actually planning on doing. Because they said when they got the Bethesda merger and, you know, the gamers, TM, were worried, like, oh, shit, does this mean we're going to get a lot of exclusives on Xbox now? He was like, oh, you don't need to worry. We think more people should be able to play more games everywhere, and we don't need to make our games exclusive to make our money back. He never said the words, we're not going to make Bethesda games exclusive. But then they made all the moves. Like, this has been firmly established by the FTC hearings, literally. There were PlayStation ports of Starfield, of Redfall, of some other Bethesda titles, like, in the works, and Xbox canned all of those. You know, Todd Howard and Pete Hines and all those guys would be perfectly content to keep releasing PlayStation ports. So, like, there's a lot of questions of, like, hey, so you said you don't need to make Bethesda games exclusive, but then you made them all exclusive. So, like, is there a genuine worry you're going to corner the market on these giant games? Now, admittedly, allegedly, I haven't, like, seen him actually say it, but the reporting was that under oath to a department of the U.S. government, Phil Spencer said he would let COD still be on PlayStation. And I didn't have a time limit, I don't think, when he said that. So, like, if you're concerned about that part, okay. I mean, you know, if he goes back on that, Uncle Sam will be very mad. And I know that we have our thoughts about regulators in this country of America, but the U.S. government is not toothless when it comes to business. I'm pretty sure Microsoft has been fucking pegged by antitrust before. Let's see. United States versus Microsoft Corp. Yep. It was in 2001. Landmark Circuit. Reach a settlement to my... Yeah. This, by the way, was when... this was when literally the United States government sued Microsoft about whether or not they had a monopoly on PCs. Also, the great big, like, telecom breakup.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that was, you know, the U.S. government does have these antitrust and anti-monopoly laws. So, like, there's some back and forth here. So, like, That at least the fact that he is willing to say that does make me think this is again not a liar but not a truth teller. But when you say under oath to Congress, basically, you know, to the U.S. government department, our Federal Trade Commission, you're going to do this thing. You kind of got to do that thing, otherwise, government gonna be real upset.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all very interesting, right? Like in general, Xbox has tried to paint Sony as a aggressive competitor who would box them out, you know, and acquire all these exclusive deals, these timed exclusives, which is not wrong. It is even said that apparently the alleged reason based on there's a lot of shit entered into evidence and discovery, by the way, for this case. A decent amount of which both Sony and Xbox did not want admitted and was still admitted. But the rumors and the hypothetical situation is that basically Xbox heard the words upon the wind that Sony was going to try and get I presume, timed exclusive for Starfield, similar to the way that Ghostwire Tokyo worked.
Mm-hmm.
So probably about a year exclusive. And apparently that worried Microsoft and Phil Spencer so much, they straight up approached Bethesda to acquire them. Which, again, kind of makes some of the conversation about Starfield kind of weird. Like, you guys thought this game was such a big deal that you decided to work about acquiring its publisher, but also, like, I don't know, like I said, Phil Spencer's really been trying to undersell, like, well, it doesn't matter if, you know, Starfield's an 11 out of 11 game. We've still lost the console war. Console war's not over. Just because Microsoft says they've lost doesn't mean they've actually lost. But yeah, Mark's talking about some of the emails. I think Sony has basically said, like, even if they still get access to Activision and COD, they are, like, basically saying, yeah, if this merger goes through, we're probably not going to be able to, like, discuss some of our future plans with Activision. Like, we might not be able to talk to them about the PS6 when that comes out because they'll be under our competition. And some people, by the way, are acting like this is absurd. I don't think it is. If Activision is acquired by Xbox, who are a direct market competitor with Sony's PlayStation, of course they can't tell them about the PS6.
No?
You can't give them PS6 dev kits. Those guys work for a competitor. That would be weird. And considering how far in advance video games are made, that might actually be a genuine concern. So we'll have to see what they say about this. I think the EU regulators asked a lot of these same questions. And they still approved the merger with obvious caveats that they made Microsoft and Xbox pinky promise not to fuck over people with their plans for cloud gaming and stuff and make those like somehow hardware locked to Xboxes or Microsoft. And again, that doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind, this is the same EU Regulation Commission who is doing shit like, hey, cell phone manufacturers, you want to sell cell phones, you have to make all batteries replaceable by the consumer. Hey, Apple, ditch this Thunderbolt cable shit, do USB-C. We're going to fucking block you. Like, some of these regulators are not afraid of throwing around their government weight if they have to, so I'm personally, the way this is going, I'm kind of thinking that unless this drags out so long that Activision ABK wants more money out of Xbox, I think that it sounds like the acquisition is still going to go through, but it may go through with basically some ground rules, which will be very interesting to see. Because, I don't know, there's a lot. We've talked about this before, about like how exclusivity works and stuff like that, and I still think PlayStation's in a really interesting point, because some people raise some good questions that some of this stuff is not, these questions being asked to Xbox are not being reflected back on Sony, but Sony's also not trying to acquire some of these companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sony's never tried to buy Square Enix. They've entered into exclusivity deals with Square Enix. Allegedly, they pay money to companies like Square Enix to keep games off Xbox, but they don't own Square Enix. Square Enix is technically free to go to other people, and Square Enix does a lot of exclusive deals, actually, timed exclusives. Chad, I would like you to think back to games like Triangle Strategy, Live Alive, even the Front Mission remakes, all of those were on Switch first for like 6 to 12 months, and now they're on like Steam and PlayStation. I don't know if all of those games are coming to Xbox again. I don't, like I said, there's definitely something to be said about like how close Square Enix feels with Sony and is that anti-competitive, but it might also just be anti-Xbox, which is in a really weird state. I don't know how to feel about that one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't own an Xbox, right? Like, they might be a legitimate business question, or it might not. I don't know. But Square Enix is not averse to these, and like, with for better or worse, Final Fantasy 16 being a thing that's on everybody's mind and on everybody's lips these days. Though, honestly, it should stay out of some people's mouths. I'll phrase it like that for now. Like, a lot of people were like, because another thing that's come out through these statements, I'll say, that was very interesting was some internal emails that Microsoft did not want admitted, Xbox did not want admitted as evidence, but were indicated that straight up, they were saying in older emails their plans were to buy up studios and box out Sony, to box out PlayStation out of the market with exclusives. Now, allegedly, that is an old strategy. Those emails are from like 2019. That is a strategy that Xbox insists is not what they are doing right now. And at least no emails have been dug up to say that is their strategy. So I don't know. They may actually have changed their moves. But this is the thing they were working on. And I think it's interesting because some people, like I said, have thrown a few stones at Sony's relationship, especially with Square Enix, oddly enough, despite how allegedly controversial Final Fantasy 16 seems to be. It's okay. It's a Final Fantasy. It's not anything new. Seriously, chat, has there ever been a non-controversial Final Fantasy release?
Not that
has that happened?
I don't think so, now that I think about it. Something's always
I don't know. Wacky, wild.
Well, if I'm going to be real, I think there's always some sort of controversy over basically almost every fucking major game release. Someone has to find something to bitch about. Some way, somewhere.
I've been thinking about like a giant meta controversy. Well, no, I don't think 7 was without controversy. 15 was definitely not without controversy. Yeah, Legendary Boss Hunter's like, maybe the first 3. Yeah. You might be right. I don't fucking know. But yeah, I've been thinking in my head, like, this over the past couple of days about this whole thing. Like, I think we could have an in-depth conversation, and Lucky may not have that conversation when there's balls and numbers going around. But
I probably can.
We've been having a lot of thoughts publicly about game reviews and scores and how that works, and what the fuck does that even mean to the consumer, right?
Right.
What is the purpose of a review and a review score? I don't know. Like, and I've been thinking thoughts. You've said some stuff as well. So, like, there's a lot going on here, and unfortunately, I think some of it boils down to something you, Lucky, have been saying a lot lately, but have said repeatedly on the show before, which is people are greedy. They want everything all the time for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's just not possible, and that makes a lot of people have weird reactions to stuff that they weren't, like, even promised. Like, I'll say this. I don't know how much Lucky actually wants me to talk about Final Fantasy 16. I got about 6 hours in. I have a decent amount of things to say. That's counting the demo time as well, by the way.
I think as long as you don't actually talk about things that happen, we're just talking about feeling and mechanics and stuff. That's probably okay.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, glowing positive things to say about playing this game. It's great. But anybody who says that Final Fantasy 16 is not a Final Fantasy, I basically think there's two ends to this spectrum. Either those people are being, no matter what, I feel like it's a disingenuous argument. At worst, those people are just straight up arguing in bad faith. They don't give a shit about what a Final Fantasy even is. They're just, saying something to say something.
It is the era of the internet where you can say whatever you want and pretty much get away with it. So some people will just say whatever they want.
Clap back.
Yep.
This is straight up a thing. I follow a lot of artists on Twitter. There have been some interesting things recently, and I've straight up seen several people saying, like, yo, people feel too free about clapping back, about talking shit to fan artists. You need to be able to clap back. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. If somebody comes at you out of nowhere because you're posting on the internet, absolutely, feel free to clap back. But one, it's bad faith. Or two, it's disingenuous because what that person actually means to say is, it is not my Final Fantasy, and that Final Fantasy is the very specific Final Fantasy, which was whatever one they played first, and is like crystallized to them as their one Final Fantasy. Because logically, rhetorically speaking, the argument of like, oh, well, this is doing different. It's not like any other Final Fantasies that have come before. Fucking wrong. There's no rhetorical leg to stand on there. Because Final Fantasies are full of differences. Like, even going back to the NES days, those Final Fantasies oscillated very wildly between, like, are we, random insert characters who have no backstory, or are we characters who are characters, right? Like, there are some games where our heroes are very specific people who have backstories and motivations, 2 and 4 and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are games like 1 and 3 where it's just like, yeah, you just kind of exist and just are your jobs, The original Final Fantasy 1 Warriors of Light, those guys aren't characters. They're not meant to be characters. The fact that Final Fantasy 1 has a story at all is a huge benefit. I've actually, seen some videos kind of discussing the technical achievements of that first game. They only had enough memory to give, like, every character, like, 2 lines of dialogue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how minimalist it is. Their memory for sprites was so tiny, like, it's crazy to think about sometimes. So, like, Final Fantasies are always about switching up paradigms. You kind of keep the mythology, the mythos, as Axe said just now. And you constantly are switching up system settings, etc.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, for some people, that one Final Fantasy is exactly Final Fantasy VII, so a lot of people pick a lot of dumb bones about Final Fantasy 16 being not Magitech enough, I guess. Even though it's still a little Magitech. Listen, there's fucking sky ruins from some guys that are everywhere. It's just a thing that happened, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking maybe I'll find out at hour 60. I don't fucking know. And like, there's a lot going on there, but yeah, that's... I understand that some people have a particular attachment to a specific Final Fantasy. That's usually 7, 8, or 10. Sometimes it's 9. But, like, Final Fantasies have been wildly different. I have played a decent amount of FFs, not like a full breadth, and at some point I probably do need to try those pixel remasters for the first 6. I played a little of the Game Boy Advance like re-releases of like 1 and 3 and stuff. I think actually 3 I think was on the DS. It was like 1 and 2. Stuff like that. I kind of like bounced off those super early FFs because like I said, they're not very deep story-wise. Like the original Final Fantasy 1 is you just start outside of Corneria and just go,
Mm-hmm. Welcome to Canaria. I like swords.
Yeah, and it's a little it's a little weird. It doesn't have quite the same hook. Whereas, I don't know. I mean, I don't like, ad hominem attacks and like, going in for that kind of stuff. But after playing the prologue for the demo of Final Fantasy 16, I want to be like, how can you not be sucked into this story? Like, Jesus, the interpersonal relationships and the setup and the acting, like fucking, I don't know, man. Like, it super sucked me in. Also, again, I want to say this. I continued where I left off from the demo. I tweeted about this. It is a seamless transition. You stick the disc in, you boot up the game for the first time. It says, oh, hey, you've got save data from the demo. You want to resume that? Just hit continue or load game. You hit continue, boom. Instantly, I am starting what I am dead certain is just, if you play it normally, the next cutscene after where the demo ends. The demo ends on a fade to black, and then it's boom, you're back.
Like, the problem I think I'm having with a lot of people is, like, people just seem to have this... They seem to have... Like, I don't know what to call this. It seems... Like, I almost want to call it a solipsism about it, but in Final Fantasy, it's like only their Final Fantasy is the one that matters, and all other ones are wrong. And
yeah, and it's like, and that's like I said. I feel like people should clarify when they say it's not a Final Fantasy. You mean it's not your Final Fantasy, and like,
and
I don't want to say people aren't entitled to their selfish opinions. I've got selfish opinions all the time. There are video games that I wish were different, and I understand that are not. But
well, there's a
go for it.
Sorry, there's a difference between having your opinion and then trying to sell your opinion as the truth.
Yeah,
that's a thing. I say a lot of shit on, I mean a lot of shit, and not all of it's good shit, but usually I go about saying, like, this is my opinion. This is what I believe. You know, stuff like that, because, you know, I could be wrong, or, you know, I do understand that what I say is based upon my own experiences and values, which is not, you know, necessarily a one-to-one with everyone else out there. Like, I haven't been a person, I think I played, like, I haven't played, like, all the classic Final Fantasies, but I've told this before, my first Final Fantasy, my first 2 Final Fantasies are not common Final Fantasies. They were Final Fantasy Mystic Quest on the SNES, which, you know, was made by Square, but is not part of the numbered series, and Final Fantasy Legends 2, which isn't actually a Final Fantasy, but I believe was it Saga Frontiers or something? It was a different game that just got a fucking...
It was indeed Saga 2.
Saga 2, that's what it was.
Yeah. Kiho Densetsu.
Yeah. And that's where, and you know, that's where I started, and of course, you know, I played, like, 7, I played 8, played 9, 10, 10-2, 13. You know, I played a bunch of them, and I'm just like... Oops. I went the wrong way. And I'm just like... I don't understand how people can look at these and be all like, I know what Final Fantasy is. I'm like, no, you don't! Because Final Fantasy is not a static, constant thing. Every single freaking game changes what they do. From, like, the first Final Fantasy having fucking, like, spell slots to, you know, the active time battle system in, like, 6 and 7, you know.
7 is not perfectly turn-based.
It's like...
Also, 7 doesn't have a job system.
No.
Which it's honestly much better for. Materia is fucking great, but, like, it's so weird. It's so weird. And, like, okay, mechanically, like, I don't know, like, reviews for 16 are... I mean, there are loads and loads of glowing reviews. There are loads of perfect reviews. I've played about 6 hours of the game. I'm having a great blast. I admit, I do not think the game is perfect. There are a couple of things, like, with, like, general composition and stuff that I think are a little not quite there. Because this has come up before, I will say, this is a thing that people do seem to tack on a little. Navigation is a little weird. I don't want to say it's bad, but there are some odd choices in here that makes me curious. So there's no mini-map. Now, funnily enough, when you're in a hub area, when you're in a non-combat zone, there is a local map. You can tap the center pad, and you will pull up a local map that lets you know where, like, landmarks and shit are. When you're in combat zones, open areas, there is no local map. But then you have Torgal's Animal Instincts, which will always point you towards your next quest objective. So, like, I haven't really gotten lost since I've been playing the full game, but it is kind of weird how we have, like, 2 separate navigation systems for, like, fight time and not fight time. And it's odd, you know? Like I said, it doesn't necessarily feel bad, it's just weird.
I think this is, like, personally, I was thinking about this because you were talking about how, there's no, like, earlier you're yelling how there's no excuse for a game not to have a mini-map. I think it's just purely for the immersion at this point.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think there's a technical reason for a game like this not to have a mini-map. And they do have the local map, so they've got, like, some map geometry.
Yeah, but
they exclude it from the combat zones, which does, I actually said, I'm not sure if there would be an artistic reason for it. I guess there must be.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess, like, the question, my question is this, like, would you expect a normal-ass person just to carry around a map of every single location they visit?
True, no. Though, I mean, you know, I wouldn't mind it if I could get some map updates, because there's my good lore buddy, the Old Man, who I love. In the Hideaway, there's just the old man who's got all your lore. You talk to him every time you come back, and he's just like, the records have been updated. You get higher levels, you get bonus lore. And I'm like, this is great. I love this.
More lore, please.
Combined
Thank you.
with active time lore, it's great. And talking to him updates your active time lore entries and shit. Like, it's good. But yeah, it is kind of interesting because Final Fantasy XIV has both full maps and mini maps, you know.
Yep.
But as an MMO, I feel like that would be kind of required. And even then, I have my complaints that the maps are not always helpful because there's a lot of verticality in some areas of 14, and it's not like, it's hard to tell where the fuck I'm going on. But yeah, it's weird. And some people pick bones about, oh, there's no wide open world. Yeah, fuck you. We don't need wide open worlds. Give me curated zones. There's a world map and there's fast travel. Sometimes there's fast travel inside world map zones. Ooh, that's good.
Oh, yeah,
wonder if that
yeah.
Endwalker effect was,
Yeah, it unlocks. I forgot about it.
inspired. I wonder if that was inspired by their work on 16. Because keep in mind, y'all, 16's been in development for a long time. It's been in dev for like 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I would like to put this out there. A lot. Again, going back to the FTC thing, Xbox has been saying that Sony is very aggressive about these third-party deals. The deal to make Final Fantasy 16 exclusive must have been locked in a long time ago, and at least according to Square, obviously they wouldn't want to like throw their business partners under the bus. But what Yoshi P has said publicly on stage, and I, feel like I can kind of take him at his word so far, was Square Enix shopped around 16 to third-party partners, and Sony was the one who had the best proposal, so they decided to go with exclusive, and they got the support they needed because originally this would have been a PS4 game, and they scrapped that version to focus on the PS5 version, which is great. But like, yeah, a lot of people have these kind of weird back and forths about like, and little niggly things, and it's just so. Like I said, I think there's genuine criticism here. The game is not perfect, and I can see that at like 6 hours.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's just good. It's just fun.
Like, I think my favorite review that I have read on 16 actually comes from RPG Site. Oh god, I wish I could pull up. Let me see if I can pull up the.
Go for it.
The not the full review, but there was something that they said at the end. I was like, actually, no, yes, this is what I want out of reviews when I want them. But this is gonna take me a moment.
Go for it. I will say, so the Metacritic score for 16 is currently 88. I know you and I both wanted the big 9, but it didn't happen so far. This, though, got me on a hole of, like, what the fuck do Metacritic scores even mean? How do they work? So, obviously, I think Metacritic scores are important to get the general tone of the industry. They're helpful for developers as well because they can get bonuses, like, tied to some of that stuff. But, hey, chat, you may want to know this. Metacritic scores totally depend on when a game comes out and what platform it's on. Because the original release of Final Fantasy VII is a 92. Listen, I love 7 to death. Would I say it's a better game than 16? I don't know. Like, the script for 7 was so messy for a long time, and even parts of it are still awkward, even after they've rewritten it a couple of times.
Oh, here it is.
There is complete nothing burger side content in 7. There are side quests you can get locked out of in Midgar that don't come up for fucking hours. Is so weird. There's weird shit. There's a thing you do in Shinra Tower in like hour 5 of FF7 that doesn't come back until the literal last disc.
All right.
And how the fuck would you know that without a guide? But you got it. Go for it.
Okay. So, the final lines for the Final Fantasy 16 review from RPG Site reads as this. For me, Final Fantasy 16 was able to excel in many of the most important aspects of what video games mean to me. And because of that, I find it hard not to love in spite of its shortcomings and foibles. If someone were to offer me a laundry list of faults, I'd probably acknowledge them with a, yeah, that's fair. I can see these issues, acknowledge them, and even share frustration with them, but ultimately not find them detrimental to the parts I adore. Padding, RPG depth, quest design, a bizarre lack of a minimap, and all those other nagging criticisms be damned, this game is special. And I'm pretty sure like that's gonna be basically my kind of take on it. And like listening to this review, I was like, no, this is the kind of review I want. I want someone who enjoys the game to tell me about it. I don't want someone who hates the game to tell me about it. And
yeah,
that's the thing that I think that's getting me a lot. I feel like some like there are just reviewers who are going in there wanting to write a bad review, and I'm just like, this.
Yeah, like I don't. So there, I skimmed the reviews on Metacritic. There's a lot of hundreds, 90s, 80s. There's a few that are like 70 or 60, and I like skim them and looking at what like. It's so weird because like people will get on you if you go like, oh, that just wasn't for them. There are jokes in the industry about, oh, this movie or this game or this book are not for critics, because usually that's what you say when you made something yes, probably not necessarily for a critical eye, but you understand that there are flaws that they're to be had.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you're giving Final Fantasy 16 a 60 score, I think this just isn't the game for you. Like, you probably shouldn't have played and reviewed this game. That's okay. You can. There are loads of game I wish I liked, but don't.
Yeah.
Fucking every Soulsport game. Chat, hey, this will shock you. I stopped playing Elden Ring because I didn't want to fuck up my muscle memory for God of War Ragnarok. I haven't played Elden Ring since then, since I stopped playing God of War Ragnarok. I just haven't felt the burning desire to go back to it. I may go back to it sometime. The game was okay, but like it still suck me in. But like, God, 16. Like if you're sitting here and going, oh, I don't think 16 has enough depth for an RPG, you're fucking wrong. Chat, I have 2 icons right now, just 2, out of a probable 8-ish. The lore books say there are 8 icons, by the way, and I don't know, no spoilers, no facts or anything, but I'm like, oh, Leviathan's gonna be in this game. The lore books specifically say there should be an icon of water, and I'm like, ooh. Just doing that rubbing hands meme. But you can only equip 3 icons at a time, and you can only get 2 of their 4-ish abilities. Plus the circle button ability, I guess. So there's 5-ish, but you always have 1. I have 2 icons. I am already like having to make deep gameplay decisions about what abilities I have equipped, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, already 2 out of 4 means you are making meaningful gameplay choices, because the difference between, say, like keeping like your default, square action ability for Phoenix's what is it, like the rising fire or something?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty basic uppercut attack. I think it does extra stagger damage or something. Between that and like keeping Scarlet Cyclone for crowd control, or doing Heat Wave for ranged counters, which I, by the way, I've fully gotten in since playing the full version of the game. Gotten into the Heat Wave love. Heat Wave's a great ability. Super satisfying to get pulled off. But then, like, this is not a spoiler. I will say this. Lucky, our theory about when you actually get iconic abilities based on playing the demo, that was correct.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I don't think I think they telegraphed that pretty hard with what cutscenes you could actually see there. But yeah, so that's when you start unlocking that. So like, the first one you get is Garuda. Garuda abilities are also already diverse. Like, Gouge is really cool because of the sheer combo potential, but like Wicked Wheel, gives you air control. Rook's Gambit is a melee counter. It's an evade and counter attack, and if you dodge a melee attack, you do extra hits. So like, damn, it's all just productive. And that's not even getting to the fact that there are like these super abilities you can unlock, one of which I haven't gotten for Phoenix, but you can do kind of like its Flames of Rebirth attack, which actually heals Clive a little bit and does like a big boom.
Big boom.
I'm like, that sounds useful. The cooldowns on that one's going to be a motherfucker. But it exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, this is with just 2. There are going to be more of these. There are going to be more of these than I can equip. So there is loads and loads of depth to this game. And, like, meaningful choice and skill upgrades and everything. And honestly, I'm kind of glad for some people that there are options like the recommended auto-buy. If you don't know what the fuck you're doing with a game like this, you can just push a button and the game will be like, here's some abilities you're going to need, homie. And I don't know how well that works, because you can freely unbuy and rebuy abilities. I might try it just to see what it, gives me, what it's recommending. But, like, that seems like a good system there. Because there's a lot of depth. People have been, like, criticizing the equipment, but I don't think it's true. There's a blacksmith, so you can craft new items, you can upgrade old items, and you can also buy new items from the shopkeep, which can then be upgraded, right? So you've got, like, Wolf Belt +1, Wolf Belt +2. There's also meaningful choices there. Like, it seems like purple items, because they have the color-coded tier. I've only seen, like, white, green, and purple, no blues yet, but I don't know. But purple items seem to be unique. Those don't seem to have +1 versions normally. But they require, like, specific items to build. Like, after defeating Garuda, you can get a Garuda-inspired sword. But, normally weapons have damage and stagger damage. Belts and bracelets have, defense up. Some also, though, can increase your HP. Some of them might increase your other stats as well. And, like, there's a lot of choice here. You get to decide, is it better that I invest in just upgrading my lower rarity equipment over and over again, or do I keep picking these like unique singular pieces that I can't upgrade? You can buy stuff, upgrade stuff, you can craft new stuff. Like, there's a lot of choice here. And if you're going to be like, oh, well, there's only 2 slots, that's not deep. Fuck you. This is not any worse than Kingdom Hearts, which, people's opinions on the plot of 3 aside, is generally thought of as a really good action RPG franchise. Somebody recently, reposted the Xemnas fight from Kingdom Hearts 2 and was like, peak gaming, and I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, but mechanically, Kingdom Hearts doesn't go that much more in depth. You've got 1 Keyblade slot, 1 armor slot, 1 accessory slot. Clive has 3 accessory slots. You know? There's plenty of depth to this gameplay.
The power of the PS5, 2 extra accessory slots. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like that. And also another thing I want to say is like the combat is just good. It just feels right. I was thinking about this earlier today. Some people have questioned like, oh, are enemies kind of like spongy? Are they kind of like, meat sacky? Yes. Enemies do fighting some mid-bosses, you'll be doing that for a little bit. Mini-bosses, even some regular mobs when they're at your level can be a little chunky. I don't really have any complaints about that though, Like, and this is a good comparison. Because I want to bring up, people are greedy and want too many things, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. Earlier this year, we talked on this very show, this very What's Up, not this literally this show, but, previous What's Up, that there was this thing going around on the internet. There were some tweets complaining about too many RPG-like mechanics in video games, right? Too many little like, oh, God of War, you've got this thing that gives you +1 this and +1 that, and Assassin's Creed went all RPG light. So people were upset about that, but when Final Fantasy 16 does it more focused and more direct, gives you fewer slots but more depth, people are like complaining. I mean, I'm sure it's not always the same people complaining, but it just goes to show that you can't please everybody. You gotta make your decisions. But like, speaking of God of War, I've played God of War and God of War Ragnarok. I like those games. They're pretty good. The story writing and the character emotional bits are very tight, and the boss fights are pretty good in those games. But there were times when I was fighting just random Joe Blow mooks where I was like, man, dude, I'm Kratos. Should this guy be taking as many hits? Do I have to punch this bandito that many times? When I do that in Final Fantasy 16, I don't feel like it. Like, when I'm fighting a Minotaur or a giant spider or whatever, I'm just like, okay, combo. Where are my cooldowns? What am I doing? Shit,
all
they're
right.
around me.
Omega.
Circle.
I just upchecked my thing. My game is now in 5th. That's like a half hour away. We're gonna have to end it. I gotta go raid a warehouse. just. It's like, I know where
Amazon delivering. You will get it tomorrow.
I'm hoping
too. People are all over the place. Like I said, some people got their copy like today. Some people got their copy Friday. If you had digital, technically you could have been playing since like late Wednesday night. But then you don't have a cloth map of Elysia.
Lucky's got to go get his game.
Sick steelbook. We do love the soundboard.
I do love the soundboard.
But yeah, like I said, when I'm doing combat, I understand intellectually. I recognize these guys take a lot of hits. The combat's just so smooth that I don't feel it. I'm like trying to do new things. I'm like trying to work on my timing for dodges. I'm trying to work out my magic burst timing. Sometimes I try to do like step combos. I'm like, okay, I can do enemy stomp and then turn that into an aerial, whatever. Like, there's so much there, and there's so much to try and experiment with. Because, like I said, you immediately, the game makes you make meaningful gameplay decisions because you are very limited in what kinds of moves you can access. So, like, yeah, it feels good. And there's tech that they didn't show you in the demo. I won't spoil the mechanics for all that stuff, but there's some extra shit in there. But there's stuff also that I didn't really get to experience as well. Like, at first I was kind of middling on Garuda's active ability, Deadly Embrace. But when I got to actually play it a little more in game, no, it's pretty useful because like if enemies are too big for you to pull, you turn it into a jump instead. And the iconic challenge demo didn't really elucidate on that too much. But like I'm like, okay, no, I understand. So if he's too big, I can like get a leg on him and turn that into an air combo. Or if they're small, pull them to you, fucking get on the ground. Like, damn, it's so good, guys. It feels so good to play. I have so far no notes about combat. Like, everything feels real natural. Like right now I'm still learning, so I've still got my timely Torgle button equipped because auto Torgle's pretty fun. I may eventually unequip that because I'm already seeing, like, late game. I think I'm gonna want those high level accessories that reduce the cooldowns of certain abilities.
Ooh.
Makes them better. Because some of those cooldowns are long, and I have already run into boss fights where I would like my counter abilities back, and I'm like, shit, he's shooting projectiles at me. I don't have Heat Wave. I did that already. Fuck. Get hit in the face with a fireball. But, like, yeah, no, it's good. It just feels good. And the other thing that, like, some people are talking about is, I just remember, I'm so glad it doesn't have a score, but there's this fucking review from Polygon where this guy was like, oh, I fell asleep during the cutscenes. What?
This is also the
Chat.
same.
Go for it.
Like I said, like, disregard Polygon just in general right now. Things have come up from their playthrough of it, and it's just like the internet has roasted Polygon over this.
Oh, was it the Polygon guy who got the fucking community notes about one-button combos?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that's okay. I was already thinking after reading that review to ignore Polygon, but it makes sense. This is the thing I'm said. You just shouldn't be playing this game. This game's not for you. Chat, full honesty. There has been at least one cutscene in my 6 hours where I was just kind of like, oh, it's these characters, blah, 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 keep talking. Not necessarily against the writing, but it was a cutscene with Benedicta and her boss Barnabas, and I'm like, okay, Benedicta, I get your character arc already. I'm familiar with your shenanigans, So, like, I'm not going to say, like, every cutscene is riveting, but it was like a 5-minute cutscene of just, like, a character cutaway to build character. I felt like I grasped both of those characters enough from what was said that I didn't really need that scene. So I was just kind of like, yeah. Oh, no, you're naked. Oh, how sexy. They don't actually show any bits, but, they're not hiding that they definitely went the slightly, bloodier, sexier route to get you some cut in there. But, but for the most part, no, I'm invested in all this character acting and all this stuff. Like, they do a really good job of blending, like, the classic, kind of omniscient narrator cutscenes where you see shit that's going on somewhere else that Clive doesn't know about. It's funny. I read these notes for future shit for the current Lost Belt 6, but dramatic irony is a thing, chat, and Final Fantasy 16 is really good at dramatic irony. Lucky, you're gonna pick up on some of this stuff right away. I'm pretty sure because you're also good at being media savvy. But like, there's some context to that Cairn Orvin, the castle that was in the iconic demo. That's still very early in the game, but they do a good job of framing the cutscene so you don't necessarily know why exactly Clive is there and what he's doing, right?
Right.
He's just looking for a dominant that Benedict has apparently corralled. What Clive thinks is going on is not what's going on, and you're gonna catch it immediately because they.
Oh no, I think
for dramatic irony.
No, I think I got that and just the cutscenes because I think I remember when you were listening to those two earlier. They didn't seem on the same page.
Yeah, no, there's some stuff going on there.
Yeah, I remember that.
So like, there's a lot of this, like I said, dramatic irony, a lot of pathos and stuff. Things going on there, and it's like it's real deep, and it's like, no, I like it a lot. Like, there's a lot going on here. So the one thing that has been coming up is, and people who are further ahead in the game than me seem to keep that this doesn't necessarily super improve. The side quests are very side questy so far. Like, not really a spoiler because this is like right away when you get to the hideout. There are a couple of side quests. They are the absolute most basic bitch fetch quest for side quests in an RPG quests. But I don't really have any problem with them at that level because that's not what they're about. They're not there to give you like deep-seated character side stories yet. Though I have heard that this game is good at remembering what side quests you've done, and that can form like chains, and characters will comment on shit you do later.
I love that kind of
stuff. Like,
yeah.
Actually, this is an interesting thing. I've seen some people saying, I don't remember the specific interview, but I saw people talking about it on Twitter. In interviews, Koji Fox apparently said that the script of this game involves a lot of subtlety, which I can see already. Subtlety's interesting. When subtlety hits, it can be very good for your audience because it lets them kind of like think about things and breathe, you know, and come back to that. But if you're too subtle, if your audience isn't giving it their all, like for instance, if your audience is rushing because they have to write a review for this video game by Monday, they might miss on some subtle cues. So I'm not going to immediately say everybody who says something bad about Final Fantasy 16 just doesn't get it, man. It went over their head. Listen, people got busy lives. I'm a multitasker by trade. I'm not going to say I'm always good with subtext, but this may be a thing that may be why you see some of these complaints, because people are not thinking about it in the right context. I don't think those side quests, like I said, are for the sake of the side quest. Literally, like, one of them is like, hey, fetch me a piece of lumber. You know, it's just what in real life would just be a guy asks you to do a perfectly normal thing for him, right?
Yeah. I think people have gotten really weird about the term side quest, I feel.
Yeah. Like, it's not like these first two weren't time wasters. It literally took me like 5 minutes to do both of them. And what I'm pretty sure they're there for is, one, I just talked about, hey, you know how there's that thing where you gotta, like, buy new gear and, like, upgrade and stuff? You need money and materials, okay? There's a resource loop in this game. That if you're just huffing MSQ, which is true, by the way. They call them main scenario quests. There's a lot of 14-isms, actually. I think it was mentioned already, but to remind everybody, there is a jukebox in the tavern in the Hideaway. It's called the Orchestrion. You know, shit like that. So, yeah, like, there's a lot of 14-isms in here. But if you're just blitzing MSQ, you might not have all the materials and shit you need to get all the upgrades you want or buy all your resources and shit, you know? So, like, you need some value. So there's that. But also, gee, I don't know. I think these side quests are so that Clive, who, like, in his backstory has just come off, like, being enslaved for 13 years, literally not called by his name. There's a reason. It's not just a codename thing why he's called Wyvern in the opening. But, like, it's because Clive needs to get used to this new place that he's in and this new situation and these new people, and kind of, like, a part of what the game is doing thematically is, like, you've just met Cid, and Clive is often like, hey, Cid, what do you want? What are you doing? What's your deal, Cid? And Cid just like, oh, I don't know, son. I'm just trying to do right by people. Lights up cigarette.
Has that deep ass voice. Yeah, I'm just like,
Cid is fucking great. Oh,
I've heard people saying that a lot of people think that this is the best Cid.
It might be. Cid's real good. Real good stuff going on, both like just acting wise and also like character wise, and also just being helpful. Like, I know he's AI only, but I see him throwing those little thunderbolts. Sometimes he does a little AoE thing where he gets a little balls of thunder around and like hits a lot of people in a group. It's good. It's good stuff. Good work, Cid. But like that's the point of these quests, I'm pretty sure, is to like let the player kind of explore the space and get used to the people and like see what everybody's deal is, because, you know, it's the start of the story. Clive's in a big transitional period trying to figure his shit out. And that happens a lot for Pathos reasons. And like he doesn't have a lot of anchors, so he needs to build anchors. And I suspect that even though a lot of these quests are probably similar in tone for a while, there are quests that are important. They will be marked by pluses. Just like Final Fantasy XIV. There will be quests that actually like are meaningful or give you like upgrades or quality of life improvements. They are marked as like slightly more important to do. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know. There's a lot of subtlety going on. The game is fucking great. I'm very eager to see stuff and see some of these upgrades. I'm literally right behind me. I'm on the save menu from where I saved earlier. So like it's good, and I don't know. There's a lot of shit going on. I think it's great. Like, and ultimately, I don't. There are some people who are like saying that like they don't think 16 will be in Game of the Year contention. I think by December, gamers will have other bullshit to bitch about. Like, I don't know, Starfield's only 30 frames or something. Or, you know, there are pre-order exclusive suits in Spider-Man 2. or something. You know, we'll have moved on. I think that 16 will get the noms it deserves, and will possibly get the awards it deserves. I'm gonna say it right now. I'm pretty sure this game's getting soundtrack of the year, best music.
I don't think I've heard anyone saying anything bad about Soken's work here.
Soken is just, it's crazy. Like I said, I've only played the game for like 6 hours, but I'm already noticing like recurring leitmotifs. Like the phase transitions and stuff, the way the music like fades in and out naturally, and also just some of the field themes. Like I just had a little walk by a riverside, you know, in some rain, and there was just, you know, some piano cues, and it transitions to battle, and like, damn, no, like it's good, it's real good. And when it needs to be really, really big and bombastic, when you're doing your kaiju battles, it gets in there, and like, damn. And I think the game understands that its side quest is important. I have found while wandering around a Kestrion role, he wanted 40,000 gil for it. So the game knows that the music is good. They're fucking trying to that's the most expensive thing I've seen in the game so far. The next expensive thing was an accessory to improve a Garuda ability. That was only 11K. Like we're going places doing stuff, game. But like there's so much little love and detail. The environments are super cool. There's a lot of these little ambient conversations. Not only can you pet Torgal, but just you can do stuff near Torgal. You see Torgal, you could just hold down X. Sometimes you pet him. Sometimes you give him a little treat. Like, there's different animations. It's good. There's good stuff. It's a good game. Fucking rad. I'm very excited to see what you think about plot stuff, because, like, that's... This, like I said, I don't know how you can play this game and not be gripped, baby. Like... Already, like I said, there's dramatic irony, there's back and forth, there's character archetypes, and again, the game sets up these subtle things. If you're paying attention to the lore, like I said, it's explicitly mentioned there are supposed to be 8 icons. Hey, chat, do you remember who the Dominant of Water is supposed to be? Have you seen him? Because unless it's Typhon, which would be weird, he's not been really shown in the game. So, like, there's shit they're hiding. Also, I'm very interested, by the way, about the book's breakup said the icons are responsible for 8 elements. So there's fire, water, wind, earth, ice, thunder, and then light and dark, which means that I'm pretty sure Odin is explicitly supposed to be dark and Bahamut is light in 16, which I'm like, that's interesting. That's an interesting take. It'll be even more interesting when I beat those guys up and steal their shit. Give me the Bahamut Blast.
I'm ready for Bahamut Blast.
Yeah. I've seen a little bit of the... I'm not going to say for sure they're going to be my lock-ins, but I strongly suspect I'm going to be real big on both Odin and Bahamut when I get access to those. That seems like it's going to have a lot of cool shit. Do like the Zentetsuken and stuff. But yeah, no, like, it's spicy. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. But like I said, the general vibe from people who were like playing early copies, as always, I feel like more and more like I trust quote unquote content creators about stuff more so than like professional reviewers. But the general vibe I'm getting is that this continues to, like, people are saying, oh, it's not a Final Fantasy game. No, this is a Final Fantasy game because all this politics bullshit is gonna like just kind of fade into the background, and you're gonna have to fight like a giant crystal who has a face or something later, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Like, you start mundane and interpersonal and character driven, and your characters are gonna get sucked up into this giant thing where, you know, God is evil, I gotta punch him.
Mm-hmm.
If this final boss doesn't have at least 3 different phases, that's when I will be disappointed. I don't know who the final boss is going to be. I don't know what he's like. Motherfucker needs at least 3 phases. I'm talking not like little phases. Like, I want to see this guy be like a rock and then turn into a dude and then maybe into a small dude. You know, shirtless Sephiroth time. But yeah, it's rad. And I will, like I said, I'm probably after this, I'm just going to like pick up my controller and go back to it. Lucky's eager to get in there.
I am. I'm just. Oh my god, this is the closest I'm gonna get to 16 right now.
Just hearing about it.
No, playing 14.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, hey, like I said, honestly, I mean the mechanics are very different, but like, I feel like 16 is like, this is the game that Yoshi P and a lot of the other like writers working on 14 like tonally wish they could go for, but have to worry about that their game stays teen rated because they want, it's an MMO, so they want to sell it to the biggest audience possible, right?
Yeah.
Because like you've played the demo. People out there have played the demo. They're one. It's the Final Fantasy where they finally get to say fuck, and they use that one a lot. But I've got to be real with you. If you have seen half the shit I have seen in the first 6 hours of this game, you would be cussing too. It's again, it's more like, I don't want to use the word explicit. It is much more sexually implicit. You get the distinct impression that sex is a thing, and there are people who are sometimes naked, but like I said, I haven't, seen a nipple or anything yet. And I don't know if I will, honestly. But like, we're more acknowledging that sex stuff happens very directly. And there's definitely way more on-screen violence. I have seen, lots of blood, lots of dismemberment. Quite a lot of people have been reduced to ash. So like, it still is tonally, I think, pretty similar to stuff we've seen before in 14. Like, I'm not all the way through 14, but finally started Stormblood, having a good time. But yeah, like, I think you can tell thematically that this is by a lot of the same team, and this is very much like in the realm of stuff they are still. Hey, funnily enough, even after all these years, the people who wrote Final Fantasy XIV still have stuff to say about war and oppression. Shocking, I know. They still have things to say. Yeah, and I don't know how much I want to play on this, but I have seen some typically US-centric takes on maybe some of the like social and political messages in 16. There's definitely an undercurrent of slavery and slave caste and caste oppression. And some people are like, "Oh, well, why aren't there any brown people being oppressed?" But like, guys, do you think the West invented slavery just for Africa? Like, I don't want to sell it short. The triangle trade and the chattel slavery out of Africa really, really fucked up. Super fucked up.
Well, yeah.
Hit new heights of unfortunateness. But Europeans did not see Africa and go, yes, I've invented a whole new form of oppression just for these people. No. The Romans had a slave caste. There were very white people being enslaved and oppressed prior to Africa. And the developers of this game are Japanese. Japan has had its own struggle with class structure and caste systems.
Real talk, most cultures have.
Yes. But, like, this is still, I think, a political button issue sometimes in Japan. I don't even know what the most polite. I think they're all really rude. I think, is it Hinin the best technical term for the lowest class in, like, classical samurai society?
I believe it is Hinin. I believe.
Yes. Some people might have also heard this as Borakumin, like hermitage people, basically untouchables. This is still a thing where in some political circles in Japan, if it's found out you come from a lower class family, that actually gets used against you. Like,
oh yeah, no,
it's similar to like the illegitimate child thing. Like Japan still has baggage about this.
Oh yeah, no, this is why the family register is like still so important.
Yeah, so like that. I can understand if, like, yes, I think there are some things to be a little grappled with here. But you got to remember, that's not a universal experience. And again, these people are Japanese. Maybe they have some stuff about their own culture they want to say vis-a-vis European fantasy.
Also, I just want to say your skin color does not determine your culture.
That is also true.
I think this is the thing that nettles me the most about things. It's just like, why aren't there different color people? I'm like, why does there have to be different color people?
Also, spoilers, there are different colored people.
It's like, usually your skin's a different color because you live in different geographical areas, closer to the sun or further away from it.
The game also does actually have like a couple of different distinct cultures and ethnicities in there, and apparently a couple of different languages, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so like, there are actually some differences. You know, it's just it's something that is again subtle and kind of like left for you to explore by like clicking at Time Lord and talking to Mr. Tome Man.
Tome Man, I'm excited for this, man.
Tomes. You know, like that's. So yeah, it's a thing that some people again might miss trying to over politicize things. But yeah, no, like I don't know. I think in general the narrative is on point, and again, it doesn't have to be in like a modern, completely modern context to be real. There's so many stories that are analogs to stuff. Actually, funnily enough, that makes me think about stuff I've been thinking about. I've still been kind of, you know, sick through the first half of this week.
Mm-hmm.
And also Thursday, I was not super well either, but that was different. I was like, my stomach bothered me and stuff like that. So just had a rough time. I literally at one point on Thursday night, I think it was while you guys were all doing whatever you were doing on 14 that day, I like laid in my bed, put my head under a pillow, and was just like, I'm just gonna sit here for a second and sweat it out. And I just passed out for 30 minutes. I unfortunately was quite sweaty about it, but I was just like, okay, I'm fine. No. Like, literally, I think I like saw you guys all at 14, passed out for a 30-minute nap, and then woke up and you guys were all out. And so I'm like, yeah, no, that sounds about right. But in this time, I have noticed that Netflix, I don't know why Netflix has this. I guess because HBO Max is cutting them, but Netflix has all of the old DC animated Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
Oh, nice.
So I've just been catching a handful of those episodes. It's also put in my mind that currently X-Men Evolution is on Disney+. I need to rewatch that sometime. I remember that from my childhood. I have to forever, curse that show for burdening me with Goth Rogue. No, I'm just stuck with that one forever. Oh no, whatever will I do? But I thought of that because I was thinking about how, you know, there are stories that are analogies for things. I don't know if the writers of X-Men have ever been super clear about exactly what the X-Men are an allegory for. I think the X-Men work better and mutants work better as just like, they are an allegory. Whatever you think they're an allegory for, it's an allegory. It could be about, you know, race, sex, sexual orientation, whatever. Do you feel like people oppress you for no good reason? X-Men. But yeah, like, it's I don't want to get into it, but we're probably not the right people to go into it. I'm just saying, it's a thing I have noticed a couple of people saying, and I'm like, this is just, it's a little short-sighted. There's a lot of stuff to be said here, and it's just kind of a weird bone to pick with. It goes to the thing we talk about people wanting everything their specific way, right? Like, people want even topics to be introduced in their own, you know, very specific way. But, you know, I'll continue to see what the stuff is about. Because the game is a game. But yeah, been watching a lot of the old Justice League cartoon. I'm not too unlimited yet. It's pretty solid. You want to talk about, like, approaching deep, dark themes, but in a way that the ratings board can say this is acceptable to children? That old DCAU stuff, pretty heavy. Like, again, there's no, like, super explicit on-screen, like, gore or anything, but they do some hard hitters. Do y'all remember when Superman burned through Darkseid's foot with his heat beams? That was a thing that happened. I saw it. Another time, the Justice League, I'm pretty sure, killed a lot of Nazis. Like, not like literally, like, did him in, but the first Vandal Savage episode, Vandal Savage goes back in time and takes over the literal Nazis. They are not shy about how it's World War II and it's the Nazis. There's literally Hitler on ice in that episode. He's frozen in a tube. And the Justice League traveled back in time, wrecks a lot of Nazi planes, and I'm pretty sure most of those guys didn't make it, and they don't really care. And I'm like, I don't care either. Superman doesn't kill people? That's fine. Does he care if Nazis accidentally die? I don't either. Whatever, man. Listen, these people followed Hitler and then Vandal Savage. Let's put up with Vandal Savage. He's a weirdo. I kid. I don't know why, but I kind of, as a villain, I like Vandal Savage. Just, this fucking caveman who's been alive for like 10,000 years. Just fucking around. Does kind of mean that he's kind of a fuck up, though, chat. How has he not taken over humanity in literally 10,000 years? If he's so smart, Well, yeah, there's like I said, they hit on a lot of heavy stuff. It has your favorite little like nods about things you probably don't get until you're older. There was some. I watched an episode about a villain team the other night that was pretty great. It had Giganta in it, and so villain Mr. Shade, hops in her Humvee and it's like, oh, you're a big girl, and she's like, is that a problem? And Shade is like, no, if anything, that's a bonus. And then later she actually becomes giant to punch a wall, and Shade says, this deal just keeps getting better. And I'm just like, yeah. We understand what comics are about. Listen, chat, if you don't know, the comic writer for Wonder Woman, very horny. Think about femdom and BDSM, that guy. So if you were ever curious about certain themes in Wonder Woman, that subtext is intentional, pretty sure. But yeah, there's a lot of this back and forth, and it's just a good time. It reminds me of some characters I feel like I don't see very much anymore because unfortunately DC has really slacked on their animated productions to go into live action stuff. But like, man, obviously, chat, this should shock nobody. Big fan of the Bats, of the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Always been a big fan of Batman in most forms, but I was really reminded watching these old Justice Leagues. Like, obviously, Flash, great character. DC animated Flash, real fun. I'm like, oh yeah, Flash is great. Also, forgot how much I or maybe I didn't appreciate, but now I appreciate John Johns, Martian Manhunter, great guy. Real rock solid man, considering he's, the literal last Martian. Really good, really there for the team.
I remember,
and it's.
I always remember that from Justice League.
Yeah.
He was a rock.
Yeah, and I'm like, man.
I just remember.
I don't know if I appreciated you, John Johns, before, but you're good.
I remember when Superman took him home for Christmas.
Yeah. No, it's good. And there's a lot of, real good work in there. Like, honestly, all the characters are fairly likable. They got a lot of stuff going for them. Do a lot of good villain work. And obviously, this is, DC animated classic, so that means, of course, you've got Lex Luthor as played by Clancy Brown, the iconic Lex Luthor voice in my brain. God, that guy's so great.
Well, this person's gonna kill us.
Yeah. And on a slightly more somber note, obviously, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy, my iconic Batman. Such good work. And listen, I still like Batman, but it's funny how much of a fucker he is in the original first run of Justice League. Like, whenever anybody's like, talk about teamwork or support or whatever, he's just like, yeah, I've got stuff to do.
I'm the Batman.
Though, of course, there's an episode where they all get sucked into their dreams and stuff with Dr. Destiny, and Batman has to keep himself awake, and he's already admitted before it was a plot point that he has been awake for the third night in a row. Like, that's how much of a workaholic Batman is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He is a freak. But, yeah, it's just good stuff. And, like, I haven't even gotten to, like, Unlimited. Like, people might not remember this, but those first seasons before it became sub-billed as Unlimited, there it's mostly the core Justice League. Green Arrow's not a character.
Yeah, I remember he shows up in Unlimited.
Yeah, so, like, that's gonna be really interesting when I get there. Aquaman is barely a character. Like, honestly, Aquaman's almost like an antagonist. Like, it's very funny that, you know, I think they did this because some interpretations of Aquaman previously are very goofy.
Yes.
But in Justice League, Aquaman's like, he's kind of a fucker. He's just like, I'm here for Atlantis. Stay away, surfacers.
Oh no, my arm!
Solomon
I'm gonna
Grundy.
get a hurricane now.
Well, I mean, talking about, you know, very metal references that might have gone over your head as kids, that was pretty heavy. In the cartoon, the reason why he loses his arm is because his evil brother has chained him to a undersea volcano with his infant son.
Yep.
And he rips his own arm off to save his kid.
Yes.
Because Aquaman's a badass, guys. He really is. But yeah, no, it's if it's real good work, considering this is like, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, man, this is a good show. This is good. You know, you've got Jon Stewart, Green Lantern. Solid boy. It's kind of funny, like, thinking about, like, you know, obviously watching this stuff as a kid growing up. You know, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman, super hot. She's the greatest. Personality-wise, like, I'm way more like hot girls way up my alley these days. Like, a woman who's not afraid to fucking punch your shit, I'll go for it. Like, hot girl is spicy.
I remember when she took Green Lantern to that party planet, and he was like, I thought we were going to relax. And he's like, nope. Literally starts a bar fight.
Yeah, no. Fights for fun.
Oh, God.
Honestly, I think some of that's just the character, because a lot of these choices, you know, there's many iterations of these characters over the years. The Justice League cartoon is kind of interesting because they portray Wonder Woman as the rookie. Like, literally the show starts when they do their big team up with her stealing over special shit from Themyscira and you know, joining to the world of men. She doesn't even have her alias as, you know, Diana Prince for like the first season. She's just Wonder Woman. It's you know, interesting to see them kind of do these things. So she gets kind of stuck in the you know, naive newcomer role, talking about Hera give me strength and shit. It also sometimes does remind me just how fucking weird comic books are, because not only is Atlantis real, but like at one point in an episode they're like, yes, our ancient ancestors fought the snake people, the serpent men, and their magic rock. And then the magic rock serpent men possess some of the team because they're bad at this. And at another point, the old ones show up. It involves Dr. Fate. Great. Xthulhu. Gee, I don't know who that could be. Honestly, he's pretty different because Xthulhu actually talks to people. But then he gets punched out by Solomon Grundy and Hawkgirl.
Punching out Xthulhu.
Yeah. Because, you know, that's the difference between superhero universe and different stuff. But yeah, it's I wouldn't say I'm a big comic book guy. There's a couple of runs that I've read over the years that are interesting. There are some heroes from specific combos I've liked. Well, speaking of Rogue and the X-Men earlier, this is a funny fact I learned the other day. Some people in chat would be interested. I learned recently that Rogue and Gambit actually got married, finally, after like a bajillion years, a couple years ago. Good for them.
Nice.
Gambit is also a great guy.
I think Gambit is still one of my favorite X-Men.
It's pretty solid. It was a few more years ago than that, X. I think it was like 2018 was that comic run.
Like,
but still,
you know, just based off his characterization in the 90s cartoon.
Yeah.
Like, because this is the thing with comic book characters for me. There's always so many iterations, so many different stories. It's just like there's not one continuity, and sometimes even within the same continuity, there's new continuities. I'm just like, I can't follow this.
Yeah,
brain help me.
And I think this is why I won't say I'm a big comics book guy. I like usually very specific characters or very specific sections of runs. Like, for instance, you know, I have a lot of fond memories of Next Wave. It's such a wild, over-the-top comic. but back when it was actually its own separate thing, I read some of the more modern Scarlet Spider stuff, one of Spider-Man's clones. And in general, you know, Spidey's high on my list, but usually in very specific contexts, you know. Like, you know, certain cartoons very good, and obviously video game Spider-Man very solid. Sam Raimi movies are good. No, I think that's a pretty solid axe. Usually, if a specific writer is on that book for a sequence, they understand when they're on and when they're going to be moved. So that's usually when you get, like, thematic wrap-ups and stuff. Obviously, there are, like, specific short stories and things going on there. But, yeah, this... In some ways, this is where I think I've cottoned on more to the cartoon versions of a lot of characters because, like you said, Lucky, those tend to be more static. They are one continuity. You get to observe all of it and follow through, you know? And it is kind of interesting to see the differences. Like, I am kind of curious how, I know that the MCU is not super hot right now, but I am still curious now that Disney has the rights to the X-Men, how they're going to handle them. Because I don't know if it's just because that was one of the movie serials that was coming out when I was a kid, or, you know, like I said, there was the X-Men Evolution cartoon as well that I really liked when I was younger. But, like, I've always been kind of fond of the X-Men as a concept. Even though, like, cartoons versus comic book continuity, they are kind of different. Like, generally, if you ask comic book fans, and you even got this a little from the live-action movies, but, like, generally people think of Cyclops as kind of a tool. He is kind of, but, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Hell, for fucking years in the comics, Jean Grey was dead for a long time. It's okay, she came back finally. Shocking, I know, the woman whose alias is Phoenix got to come back sometimes. And have a bunch of kids from alternate futures, because comic books are fucking weird.
Comic books are really fucking weird.
It's always strange to think about these things. Like, this is a weird thing I know from comics because I followed some. I've read some self-titled serials for like X-23 before. You know, Girl Wolverine, Laura Kinney. She ends up kind of buddy with, oddly enough, with Gambit, but also with Jubilee a lot. Where comics have gone with Jubilee is like really weird. Like, she was introduced in the '90s and is a very '90s character, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the '90s cartoon, she was a big mall rat, basically, which is a very '90s thing. I'm gonna say that, and there are gonna be some people in our audience who are too young to understand what the fuck I'm talking about.
Mallrats, man. Well, it's kind of hard nowadays with, you know, the whole entire mole cartridge is kind of gone.
Yeah, it's just not how people are. But, like, yes, no, you're gonna talk about how she, yeah. So for a while, Jubilee was basically like Wolverine's kid sidekick.
Oh yeah,
so
no.
they wanted to keep her young.
Actually, funnily enough, at work, I actually had that series come through, the one with Wolverine and Jubilee. I think that's what it was called, Wolverine and Jubilee, or something like that.
Probably. But yeah, so like Jubilee was kind of like framed as Wolverine's kid sidekick. So she was in the, you know, the '90s New Mutant wave, but she was trying to stay kind of young. And some of those other characters started to like get up there into like their late teens and early 20s, and writers were kind of like working on how old it was. And I don't know if this is exactly what they decided to do, but at some point, I'm not kidding, they made Jubilee a vampire.
Yes.
So she didn't have to be older than like 17. And it was weird. I think she did finally get de-vampired, but
yes.
Yeah. It's wild. So, like, this comic book continuity thing is so freaky sometimes. But like, this is why I think I latch onto, like, certain slices of characters from... Like,
I think this is why I'm actually probably getting more interested in, like, graphic novels. Because usually graphic novels are... Because they're bigger, and they usually are more just concrete in something.
Yeah. And sometimes you can see this in the frame of, like, what was a serialized comic can become kind of like the trade omnibus collection as well. But yeah, like I said, I'm very interested to see how the MCU is going to handle certain mutant characters, because, like, on the one hand, I think with all the movie films, and especially ending on Logan, I don't need to see any more live-action Wolverine.
No.
Especially, you know, with somebody who's not Hugh Jackman, because he embodied that so well for so long.
He really did, and honestly, like I said, I cried at the end of Logan, man.
Yeah, no, Logan's a perfect capstone. It's a great film.
It is.
But, like, there's also other interesting things because like it's kind of weird in the live action movies and like X-Men Evolution, for instance. Rogue's kind of a weird, different character because in the actual X-Men comics, Rogue's kind of a flying brick type character because she ate Carol Danvers' powers. She had Ms. Marvel's powers for a while, so she was like super strong at flying stuff. Obviously, when you're not doing crossovers like that, it doesn't really make sense. So like, Rogue didn't really do a super lot of power stuff in the live action films. And while she was still a major character in like X-Men Evolution, for instance, she never got like that power set either. Mostly focused on her clever use of stealing people's powers. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but Deadpool 3 is Deadpool 3, you know? I'll accept that, but that's because that'll be more Deadpool shit. And the Deadpool films have been hitting.
I still haven't seen the second one. I probably should at some point.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Keeps our decent comedy level. But I think that, like I said, that context for characters like Rogue will be interesting because, hey, Carol Danvers is actually a character in the MCU. Will they do the thing? Like, would they have the crossover where Rogue copies her powers? Or will they do something different? I don't know. There's a lot of these little subtle things. I will also be kind of interested how they end up, going for a cast and a look of Rogue because she's had a few over the years. A lot of people remember the look that was the iconic 90s comics look, which was her huge hair and her bomber jacket.
Yeah, I remember that shit.
That's the very specific, solid look. And obviously, Rogue has a reason to wear a, head-to-toe bodysuit.
So no one can touch her.
It's not that she doesn't look great in it, but she has the most reason to wear something like that. But then, like, there's, a couple of different iterations. Like I said, X-Men Evolution had, Goth Rogue, and the live-action sped their kind of own direction. And I'm pretty sure in modern comics, her hair is a lot more under control. Presumably, so artists don't have to draw it that big anymore.
Well, also, it's just kind of it's just kind of voluminous. It is the hairstyle of the 90s.
Yes. And like there'll be other stuff like I said, like as a character, Jubilee. How would Jubilee translate to being made in like 2025? She's a very 90s character, has a very iconic look. Hell, I didn't even realize Jubilee was in Evolution for a while. But she had a little more of a realistic look, like she didn't have her short hair, and so I was like, oh, I never realized when I was a kid that was Jubilee, because she didn't have the giant fucking earrings and like the boyish shortcut. It's interesting. And I guess the question of, like, what shit will they pull out? Like, will we see X-Men versus Avengers? They managed to kind of salvage Civil War and make it not as dumb as the comics, so it's another really interesting thing about superheroes and comics. Like, thinking about characters I like I feel like I'm much more attached in, like, Marvel to very specific team-ups or, like, certain characters that I feel are just kind of there. Like, Daredevil's pretty good usually. The obviously the Netflix Daredevil show was really well made, but like I've seen some Daredevil stuff before, and I'm like, Daredevil's pretty solid. He's okay. Spider-Man obviously very iconic, and I've been a fan of certain iterations of the X-Men, but I'm not as attached to some of the other, like the Avengers lineup. Also, the Avengers lineup has fucking been all over the place. But it's interesting, right? Like the films and Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal specifically did a huge like 180 on Iron Man's character.
Oh yeah, no. I kind of liked Iron Man, but he was just always kind of mad. But then, I actually watched Robert Downey's version. I'm like, oh no, I love this man. He's a fucking, he's an American billionaire being, American, but, gross of conscience.
Yeah, no. And like, that's just RDJ. I mean, the man was also Sherlock Holmes. Like, he's got range, and he can bring you this stuff. But like, in the comics at the time, just before that movie came out, Iron Man was honestly kind of an asshole. He was getting a little fashy, like with the Civil War thing and stuff. And then like, completely kind of turned around. How much of like I feel like you said like, Robert Downey Jr. showed him like growing a conscience and just has that on-screen charisma, So like, it's hard to hate him because he's just kind of like, you get the impression that like Iron Man really do just be kind of like, he's just a big bundle of trauma and money. Money trauma. And like, it works, even when he's doing dumb stuff, you kind of feel for him because like, he's got personality. Whereas I feel like the older school Iron Man in the comic books was a little bit more of like, he was the rich billionaire stereotype kind of a thing. What TV tropes called rich idiot with no day job. And unlike Batman, where that guy is fake, as we like to say, Batman is real, Bruce Wayne is a mask.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that's a literal joke in Batman Beyond. There's an episode where a villain is trying to like get in Bruce Wayne's head, but later when it's all been resolved, Terry asks him,
"Why didn't?
Hey, how did you know the voices weren't real?" And he's like,
"I don't
because he called me Bruce. Yeah, in my head, that's not what I call myself."
Yeah, I remember that.
And Terry is like, "Oh, what do you call yourself?" He just looks at him, and he's like, "Oh, you would."
I think honestly, I'm gonna be real. I think Batman Beyond is my favorite Batman. I'm gonna be real.
It's real good. Shit, is that on anything? It's been forever since I've seen Batman Beyond.
Because I just love the idea of like Batman having like the actual like mentorship, not like to a Robin, but to another Batman. Like,
yeah.
Like, not to mention like that was also in the time when they were trying to be more darker and edgier with things, and overall, I would say in the worst way. But
yeah,
Batman Beyond was like, no, that is something that was cemented in my childhood,
and has a really solid capstone with the Return of the Joker movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a real good like thematic climax to that series. Unfortunately, Batman Beyond is only on Max. Somehow, this tells you just all you need to know about Batman Beyond. Somehow, with all the animated shit they have cut and redistributed, HBO Max still has Batman Beyond.
It's like, no, you can't have it. It's ours.
I mean, we'll see. Apparently, Netflix has been working out a deal to get even some old exclusives and some other shit previously. Like, they're working out a deal with HBO Max, so maybe that's why some of this DC stuff is there.
Give me some.
Also, X is correct. There's some. I mean, you got to remember, everybody. Iron Man's originally from the 70s. The thing he was injured in his most original version was the Vietnam War. So, like, Iron Man's old. There's some weird shit. That happens in a lot of comic books, honestly. There's some stuff that you're just like, yeah, that wouldn't play today. But yeah, like I said, like, there are specific iterations of those guys I've gotten attached to, but I feel like because of where the cartoons were when I was growing up, I'm a lot more locked on to DC stuff. Like, there was a couple different iterations of Batman, but Batman is usually pretty solid. And I mean, I think generally every time Kevin Conroy's played Batman, it's mostly been Batman. But there were a couple iterations. There was The Batman show, and I never watched it, but I heard a lot of people praise the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon as well. But, like, DC had a really strong animated block during the later 90s into the early 2000s. Obviously, Batman and Superman animated that kind of came together into Justice League. Static Shock, obviously.
That's the
praise of Static Shock many a time on the show.
Yes. I was about to say, if Static Shock in the game match, I'm going to have words. You talking about Static Shock.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And like I said, plot-wise, the original Justice League is like, that cartoon is really well made because every episode is at least a two-parter. So, like, even though they're only 20 minutes, really everything's 40 minutes. And they do a really good job of, like, mixing and matching the ensemble cast. Like, sometimes the episode calls for everybody on the team to be all together. But a lot of the time, it's usually like, okay, Flash and GL go over here, Batman and Wonder Woman go over here. But they also mix it up. They do, combos where, like, sometimes it's Hawkgirl and Wonder Woman. And they play with the character relationships real good. And then, if I'm understanding correctly, like I said, I haven't gotten to those episodes myself, but the point of Unlimited is it turns a little bit from the multi-parters to more of a overarching meta plot thing. And they get really good at focusing on obscure DC characters, which is sometimes good if you're building an ensemble cast. They got a lot of people, and obviously, in a wildly different continuity, another seminal show from my childhood, Teen Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Very solid. many people are now burdened by Teen Titans Forever. One, because of, all the fun culture stuff going on. But, I think that's where a lot of young people were introduced to Starfire and Raven for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never been the same.
No.
The internet has truly never been the same. And, Starfire's got an evil sister thing going on, too. She's
Oh,
determined
Morgania
to
just
dark.
fucking killed me.
Oop, rip. This will be fun to get to later. Well, when are these the Shadowbringers?
Yes.
Let's do that. But I noticed there's many glowing things and lots of special lines, fucking symbols and numbers and shit.
Yep.
But yeah, I think in general the thing you said earlier about like so many different continuities and different shit and reboots and alternate universe and fucking like Marvel and then the Ultimate Marvel and back and forth and shit like that. DC having a multiverse crisis like every 10 years at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Actually being into comic books is hard, but superheroes have always been really interesting to me. There's a lot of diversity there. Very fun.
Well, superheroes are great because superheroes usually are always more than human, and that's always something, I guess.
And let's go Batman.
Oh, he's still superhuman. Don't you fucking at me with that shit.
Yeah, we all know. Batman may not have any as they phrase it, special powers, but he's Batman.
He's Batman.
Man, that's just something that's been milling around in my brain a lot. Gee, that's weird. Oh, it is a little warm in here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I mean, I do have a couple other things I could talk about, but I might do that some other time. Because we've been gone so long, I haven't had time to talk about how I accidentally started designing a new RPG in my sleep.
Oh god, yeah, you mentioned that. I found that one hilarious because this was like you talked about this like I don't know, that's like days after fucking what was it? Shadow Wizard Money Game was trending on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely why in my notes that is currently called Shadow Wizard Game. I'm a big fan of Shadow Wizard Money Gang memes, but like that's also just the. I mean, I left it in there because I knew I might be showing it to other people, but the document I got where I'm working out my ideas literally starts at the Came to Me in a Dream because I'm not shitting you, chat. I literally like went to sleep one night and instead of like normal dreaming or whatever time, my brain was just like, hey, I've got an idea, and just like did game design. Like not like hard and fast game design, but like wouldn't it be neat if
If bleh.
and the bleh that came out was like, okay, imagine an urban fantasy game. The core mechanic that my subconscious assembled was, okay, so if you're gonna do magic spells, what if you had a word with a capital W, by the way,
Word.
and that word was the thing. So like, there's a word for fire. This was an example I used in my writing, and also I'm pretty sure was in my original dream concept. But if you combine the word for fire with the word for summon, that means you get to like call pre-existing fire into you, and it just kind of went from there. The idea that you can kind of like this is the part that, like I said, my subconscious really latched onto. The idea that you would build more complex spells by stringing words together, and that lets you do more complicated things. But then each individual word is less powerful. So like if your spell is just fire and you just throw a fireball, you could throw a pretty spicy fireball. Obviously, as I've milled over actual game design stuff in my conscious, I'm like, there probably needs to be some limiting factors, so it's not just like your dominant strat is always just learn the word for fire and cast fireball over and over again. there's probably going to be some kind of cost involved, so that like there's a reason to do subtler, more complex spells. Also, just in general, there are some problems you can't solve with Fireball. Wild, I know. But yeah, like, so that was my kind of core idea that came forward, and then the thing that is shaped from there has just turned into like, definitely got like some World of Darkness inspiration, but without some of the weird cross-company baggage that World of Darkness, both old and new, has had. Kind of inspired by some of the earlier Dresden Files stuff. Like I said, if I was gonna write an urban, urban fantasy RPG, there are elements I like of like, okay, you're a super powerful, cool, mystical wizard. You're not allowed to tell anybody you're a wizard, so you still have to pay rent, buy groceries, and like in my notes later, like perfectly normal stuff, like, hey, maybe your perfectly normal friends want to go out for a beer, or the cute girl from the mailroom asks for a date. What are you gonna do?
Panic.
You've got hellhounds at your door, literal hounds of hell. What are you doing? Shit like that. Which seems to, I shared it to the Secret Cabal earlier, and that seems to be something that a couple of different people have kind of observed and latched onto. Like I said, I don't really know if this is, like, going anywhere. I have been sick this past week, so I haven't done any super writing. I have banded around the idea for a bonus stream, which is just, Omega's game design time, where I would just stream my Google Doc and, like, think about stuff, work on ideas, and people could kind of see along. I'll probably put that on the poll. I don't think it'll win, because I'm also going to put on the poll, like, hey, I'm going to do Dark Knight quests. Because I need to schedule extra time to do stuff in Final Fantasy XIV that people want to see me do. Otherwise, we'll be here forever.
Well, don't worry. Final Fantasy XIV wants you here forever.
That's true. And I'm not averse to playing it loads. It's kind of that disconnect where, like, people have expressed a desire to explicitly see me do some content on stream. That's right, I do need to do Odin sometime. That motherfucker is just going to lurk in my quest log forever. But yeah, like, it's fine. That can be done off stream. You guys have already said you can do it.
Big bully.
I'll switch to Dragoon and jump on him a couple of times.
I think he does not go down fast enough, so yes, you will be able to jump on him.
What,
Jenny! Jenny, no! Jenny! Damn it, Jenny!
See, this is just regular stream lag.
I need a rescue!
The tank needs a rescue. That would be interesting.
Well,
actually.
Because Jenny went to the right side, but was in the wrong. Jenny went to the right X, but the wrong Y. And I'm like, fuck!
Yeah. It's like, no, scooch. And of course, you don't often have time to yell this shit out in the text box.
No.
But yeah, I was gonna joke about showing up with 8 DPSs, and like 2 summoners, and just Odin eats 4 Bahamut's in about 12 seconds and just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Reduced to atoms.
Atomize.
So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, like I said, I've got some ideas for this month's Beats bonus stream. Those will be that upcoming Thursday.
Oh yeah.
We'll see what people do.
Actually, interesting enough, we actually had something interesting happen in our Discord this Thursday. I don't remember entirely what it was, but I think it was like King, Axe, Schrodinger, and a couple other people were actually having a Pathfinder game in one of our channels. I actually sat in for a bit and listened in. It was actually quite fun. I'm glad to see other people, getting in there and doing that kind of stuff. I always feel kind of weird. Also got me kind of jonesing for that fantasy. I'm like, yes, give it to me.
We're on the schedule for Jensen, man. All my notes are done.
I am excited for that.
Well, yeah, I do know that occasionally people talk about home games, but sometimes they don't actually do them in server. But it's good.
Mm.
I think King actually invited me to that game, but I was like, I I only have like one free day a week, and that's the day you're scheduling. So I'm sorry, I have to turn down. I am too busy. This is like my one day I'm not committed to extra shit. Because I that's why it's the bonus stream week, because I usually take Thursdays to do a lot of stuff. Writing scripts, working on stuff when available, bouncing out some other things.
Mm.
Yes, it's always good to see people using the full breadth of the server. And tabletop games are on people's minds a lot, because OSP, Drink, did a detailed diatribe, which I love the title of this detailed diatribe, and of course immediately had to pick it. Tabletop RPGs that are not D&D, that are good. Because y'all know, once again, I've yelled about it. Pretty sure Lucky's yelled about it too. Sometimes people are too obsessed with D&D. I understand it as a market leader, but like, goddamn, guys. There's a lot of other fun games out there. And so now I'm actually kind of glad that I have, if people ask about that, I'm like, you should go check this out. Check this video out. Because it actually had, as a third host, it was run by Red's sister, Magenta, who actually, like, talked about cool games that they had played. Which is something that I can't always talk about. There's a lot of cool games I've read, but, you know, the amount of scheduling to get people to play all these games, it's hard. It's hard sometimes. Especially when it's a lot easier to slot in, you know, say, like, Final Fantasy 14. It's a lot easier to get in there. Just like, hey, we'll do some 14 stuff, play some CC. Everybody's like, yeah, I got that installed. But it's a good one because there's some topics broke up in there. I actually learned about some new games.
Cool.
There was like I mean, if you got like an hour, I would say you should also give it a listen sometime, Lucky, to, you know, see some recommendations for games.
Mm-hmm.
It jumped on the train of everybody recommending, if you want to try stuff that's not D&D, Lancer. Me personally, I don't think I'm ever going to be in the mood to run Lancer, but I'm okay to play it sometime. It does actually seem like it's got stuff. And I would actually say I think the game did the most to sell me and possibly even, you know, some people I know like Lucky on with some of their stuff, because Downtime's not as fleshed out, but it is interesting. Because for the first time I actually saw a discussion of Downtime, and I think you will appreciate this, Lucky. There is apparently a thing you can do for Downtime in the game of Lancer.
Oh.
Where you just go out and, you know, get drunk.
Nice. Like,
to kill time and de-stress. And as a result, like, if you take this action, it's framed as, like, it's a list where you have to pick 2 out of the 3, so you or actually it might be 1 out of the 3. You can choose to come to with your memory, your possessions, or your dignity. And you have to pick, and I'm like, okay, Lucky will appreciate this.
Oh, I do so much.
Just,
I gotta remember that. Lucky hasn't given up on writing his own, by the way.
Yeah. You still have your zombie project in your back there.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, no, it's real interesting. So, like, there's games I've heard of before that they praise that are interesting. Funnily enough, that detailed diatribe has actually caused updates to games that were mentioned.
Really?
A game that was mentioned, if you like the combat, was called Panic at the Dojo. Was recommended in the detailed diatribe as a really good game if you want to sit down and play a kind of, like, you know, weird martial arts type game. Like, some of the inspirations that were described were stuff like Jackie Chan Adventures.
Hell yeah.
I think it feels like some like old school beat 'em up games and stuff like that.
Streets of Rage.
But one of the things that was mentioned as a flaw of this game was that there was not a good progression system built into the game. Your characters are kind of static. You make them, and then that's you. You're stuck that way. Well, hey, apparently that got a lot of buzz, so that actually got the developer to be like, oh, hey, by the way, I've been working on a character progression thing, and apparently because you guys are super interested, I'm going to be releasing it soon. So, the actual writer of that RPG was not subtle in saying this was prompted by the fact that everybody got in there with, like, actually, like, we're suddenly interested in this game, but also this flaw was kind of, you know, writ large. And I do say that is a potential flaw. The detailed diatribe is really good at mentioning that, hey, guess what? Not every tabletop RPG is for every player. You need to pick your games and your players to suit your individual needs as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're going to get games that are not for some players, and I think I kind of agree with his advice. That means that, like, if you're going to want to run those games, you might have to be willing that you are going to exclude certain players, and that is not always a bad thing. Like, you know, sometimes if that's the game you want to run, you're going to know that some people are going to have a bad time, and I think it's worse to, like, force people to play a game they're not going to 100% vibe with than to be like, oh, you're not interested in this game? Okay, we'll catch up some other time. And if you are insistent on, like, keeping everybody in your friend group in, then you should find the games that you all want to play, you know?
Yeah.
But so, like, this is a really good mood to set that, like, hey, there's a lot of different tabletop RPGs over the years, and there's a lot of different games and interests, so, like, different groups want to do different things.
Jenny, no!
Done it again.
Well, Jenny didn't kill anyone this time, so I guess it's fine. As long as they didn't put overlap.
Same raid time, same raid channel. But, like, yeah, so, like, some people play tabletop games because they're really into the pocket improv of it.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are really into the storytelling and character building. Some people do just want to crunch numbers, roll dice. Some people, they may be in this very room. Some people like to play games for, like, the logistical aspect, the kind of meta game of it, you know, lining all your ducks in a row.
I play for multiple reasons.
I know. But you are a player who likes that kind of,
Crunch.
not quite homework, but definitely, like, you like a little bit of that extra game crunch. Like,
Yes.
that you know, I've heard some games described as, like, you know, a little bit like an RPG with a 4X aspect into it. I'm like, that's the kind of thing that Lucky would like, is that kind of, like,
Oh, yeah.
extra, you know, almost managerial aspect. Looking at all your things on paper and going, okay, this goes here, we do this.
Oh, yeah, no, like, that's how I'm designing my game, and I already know that some people are not going to be about that. Some people don't like keeping track of things on their character sheets.
And you know what? Not all games are for all people.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not your flow, either get somebody to help you with it, or you do not have to play this game. Trust me, there's a lot of games. But yeah, so like I said, it's really good at approaching that. So they talk about some you know, more combat focused games, some games that are better for one shots, campaigns. Talked about some interesting stuff. Some systems were mentioned. You know, they brought up the whole Powered by the Apocalypse thing.
Yeah.
It is kind of interesting because, while I know that they have a little bit of experience with this, Red and Blue, the two main hosts for OSP, were on that. They're much more versed in, like, how people discuss and do, like, media literacy and critique of video games than tabletop games.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of interesting to see from somebody who's kind of outside of this hobby about how, like, yeah, tabletop games really aren't unified in terminology. Like, so what, for instance, basically, if Powered by the Apocalypse or Star World games were video games, you would call them Apocalypse likes.
Mm-hmm.
To put for reference if people don't play tabletop games. But the kind of distribution was when people started using the engines that were originally used for the RPG Apocalypse World, the stamp on it was Powered by the Apocalypse, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So talked about that. Talked about Blades in the Dark, which has become another, like, RPG movement. Actually, that is a good question. You said this about you may or may not be there tomorrow.
I may or may not. I am not entirely sure. I'm going to try and get out early in the morning and try and get back early afternoon, but it might be, like, evening. I don't know. If I don't, I'll probably, like, give a check-in maybe at, like, 3 or 4 saying where I am. So it won't be last minute, but until then, I won't fully know.
Yeah, so I kind of Ax was asking if that meant for us to start the game without you. I kind of that meant just you were thinking just play it by ear ourselves and, you know, do whatever we do.
I mean, if you want to play without me, I literally will not care. Like, whatever you play, like fucking Red Markets, Jinsekai, or whatever. Like, I don't. I genuinely don't.
Cut you out of Jinsekai.
Yeah.
Like, you're just talking about you being Jones for fantasy, but we'll figure it out what we feel like if you're not ready right away, and we might put a wait on. I don't know what people's schedules are. Dallas did say he would probably talk to me Sunday, so I think he's probably going to be free. So we got that back. But yeah, we'll get into it. But yeah, there's this. You go check out this DL Drive. There's a lot of fun stuff in there, and I appreciate shoutouts to games I have heard of and liked. I was actually pleasantly surprised they mentioned Don't Rest Your Head. It's a game I haven't run very often, but is very interesting. The kind of like 5-minute elevator pitch on that, if you've never heard of it, is in Don't Rest Your Head, your player characters are basically chronic insomniacs.
Oh.
You can't or won't fall asleep for some reason, and that means you have kind of entered a dreamlike state of being awake or asleep. And if you're at a point where if you fall asleep now, there are like nightmare monsters who are going to get you.
Oh, Jesus.
So you've kind of entered into this like parallel reality sleeping world of like other people who are all half awake and asleep, and you have access to special powers. And the way it works is it's a D6 dice pool. You do have to keep track of your different dice because you will roll different pools of dice, like NPCs. The GM rolls pain dice against you. You can roll dice that are based on your, I think it might be called excellence or skill, but like your normal mundane person stuff. You can roll exhaustion dice. You can roll madness dice and power dice and stuff. And whatever dice you have showing the most, I think it's 6s, but it might be 1s. It's been a while since I ran it. But basically, the way you resolve your pool is you get a result on your numbers, but also a certain thing dominates. And depending on what dominates the pool, different things happen. Like if exhaustion dominates, you get more tired until eventually you do just straight up pass out and nightmares like zero in on your location. But also as madness goes up, you get like crazier and crazier, shit like that. So like it's a really interesting, weird, trippy system that I've run a couple of times. It's very fun. And like full of weird esoteric shit. So I'm glad to see that get a shout out. But yeah, you should check it out with some stuff. But okay, all right. Like I said, I didn't really keep any notes, so that's a couple of the things that have been rattling around for me off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from you, Lucky?
Not really. I don't think there's much.
Read any good books lately?
Hang on one second. Jenny has
I mean, you can ask about in the Cabal, but like, I don't think you're gonna get any better answers. You're better off asking about that in trad generally, where you can get a wider audience. I'm trying to think. I've seen people discuss a Zelda RPG before, but I obviously it's a homebrew, not a licensed target. But I've seen it out there. I think the systems exist.
And well, like I'm having this problem with like my own, and fortunately, if you're doing a Legend of Zelda one, you already have the framework. You just can just make the system yourself. Like, what do you want to use? Do you want to use like a D6 pool? Do you want to use like the whole D20 gamut? Do you just want to go with D10s? It's like, Axe, you have this weird, like, it might be because of your mind goblins, but you're always very obsessed with using a system that someone else has already created rather than using one that you come up with yourself. Usually because you feel like you can't do it for some odd reason, but I'm gonna tell you right now, you can do it. You just have to sit down. This is like the worst advice fucking ever, and I hate using it, but sometimes it's true. Sometimes you just have to sit down and do it.
Well, let's see. This is fucking hilarious.
What?
Sorry, I remember this. Nintendo and Critical Role collab to do a one-shot, so there's rules out there somewhere. I don't know if Matt Mercer was able to actually, like, show it anywhere. But it was powered by the Apocalypse, and the 3 stats were Wisdom, Power, and Courage. So, like, there's that out there.
That's great.
If you can maybe, like, you can watch that one shot and try and reverse engineer it or find out where some stuff is. But I just Googled Legend of Zelda RPG, and there's a couple of out there that have been more popular. So, like, there's some hell, there's a subreddit called Zelda Tabletop. There are some skeletons out there. You can, work on it. And if you're just like a player and you've got a GM who's trying to find stuff, one, obviously that should be more the
GM
responsibility. They have
Yeah.
to go run. They have to run the game. But like, if you're looking at it from a player's perspective, I would dig up some of those homebrews and read them over with kind of a critical eye and see what you think and pass those on. And also, I mean, obviously the GM's going to run the game, so they're the ones who have to do the kind of reffing. So that's why you should figure a game that works for you. And again, this detailed diatribe has some games that are basically GM-less. For more of a loose table feel. Sometimes you have a guide, sometimes you don't. There was a concept RPG, Lucky, that I loved. I don't know if I would ever want to run it with the group because it's kind of crazy, but basically it was an RPG that tried to emulate the storytelling feel of like Dark Souls type games.
Oh, really? Jesus.
Because the way it works is basically your characters, your players kind of set stuff up, and you have like a character playing. One player plays kind of a central wanderer character. The kind of like weird protagonist of a Soulsborne type game. You have one or more players kind of embodying like NPCs or the world values or stuff like that. And like, I mean, Axe, I will tell you this, lore-wise, no, you can't do that. It's magic. The Gerudo only have one male born like every so many 100 years. And like, I don't know if that guy can be reborn while Ganondorf is alive. And it seems like Ganondorf is always fucking alive. I mean, I guess if you were gonna be the one guy out there, you can work on that, but I don't. Anyway, I mean, not that I'm telling you can't fanfic stuff, but like, if you're gonna look for people that support that, you're gonna have to make that shit up. Because like there's established stuff. Again, now that Nintendo doesn't occasionally loop back on that, but there's a reason why we've only ever seen one male Gerudo like ever. It's just oops all Ganondorf. Ganondorf's all the way down. That I say that as a joke, but honestly, that's how a lot of Zelda feels. It's just Ganon's all the way down. Just keep going down, you find another Ganon, literally. That's the plot of Tears of the Kingdom. We dug a hole under our first Ganon, and we found a new Ganon. Why did we dig that hole? I don't fucking know. It's because Zelda's a nerd. But yeah, so like I said, the storytelling caveat of this game, like this kind of Soulsborne type game, is how you portray these characters in these settings and stuff is all the players like go away and they figure out what they think is happening with the story, and then they come back and you act like your version is true, but you don't tell anybody about it.
Fuck.
So it just the weird confusing lore is just built in, and I'm like, God, this is like such a pain in the ass to play, but also like so on the money for like how that feels, right?
Right.
Literal designed by committee. So like there's a lot of weird shit in games, people should look at. But yeah, in general, your GM is going to be your arbiter, your referee of the rules. So you should they need to figure out what works for them. But there's a lot of steez going on there. There was kind of there was an interesting aside. Like I said, the host of the slideshow, Magenta, talked about how the perma GM joke kind of makes them insane. And I can kind of agree with the circumstance of it, but GMing takes a lot of extra work most of the time. Some games are actually very easy to GM. You'd be shocked. Like, other than figuring out how the rules are different for the GM, Red Markets is remarkably easy to GM because it's all player facing. It's just like, hey, you roll some dice. Oh, you fucked up. You're a zombie now. You're dead, and now you're a zombie. What's that? You fucked up with your flamethrower? You're on fire now. How do you feel about that?
On fire.
Okay. Oh, well, good for you. Roll humanity. Roll self-control. So, like... But, yeah. So, like, depending on the system, GMing takes work. But there are some people who really like being a GM. I feel like being a GM most of the time scratches my storytelling itch a lot to, like, hand players systems, rules, settings, stories, and be like, hey, what are you going to do with this? Normally I approach games not from a, like, because I write my own short fiction in my own time anyway. I don't write it as like I'm writing a novel that you guys are starring in. It's more like, hey, look at this. Look at this thing. What do you want to do with this thing? And then a player says, I eat the thing, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Roll some dice. Now you're purple. Shit. Eating the things makes us purple? We need to turn this into a small business. I've played enough games with players to know players are
I got another
players
MLP.
are a special breed. But like I also like to play games because I like to play games. Lots of people like to play games. It's a pretty normal hobby to have. And finding the time and motivation with people to play games can be hard because basically they recommended a solution where you take some time and just do like a round robin series, agree on a game and like have everybody go around and every player run a different one-shot session, you know, to see and get a feel for it. That's good on paper, but there are a couple of like logistical flaws with that solution. One, these days, a lot of the people I play games with are busy adults with many adult things to do, to quote Cards Against Humanity. So blocking out like your typical group of RPG people is like, you know, 4 to 6 usually, sometimes, you know, a little more. Blocking out a month, because usually we can only schedule 1 day a week to do stuff. Blocking out a month to do round robins when maybe your group prefers longer form play. And I do think that most of the players I know now prefer longer form campaign type stuff. Like, honestly, this is why, you know, we switched off Red Markets for a while because, you know, some of you guys were feeling the, like, lacking of the Stitch narrative, you know?
Yeah.
You know, wanting to get a little more of that longer term feel out of it, and I'm like, okay, we'll see if we can make that work. Some of that, obviously, like I said, was because you guys were doing scores, not jobs, so scores don't really turn into job lines, you know, subplots, but we'll work on that. We'll see what happens when we next play Red Markets, because I'm sure we will go back, but, you know. So, like, that's not always easy to set up, that kind of round robin stuff. But also, like, much like, because there was an argument there that I do agree with. You should not have a relationship with your friends, your alleged friends, where you feel like you're forced to do something you don't want to do, right?
Right.
If you don't feel like GMing, you shouldn't be GMing. Take a break, and if you're if you're really friendly with these people, they should, you know, understand and support you, because that's what friends do. Allegedly. I agree with that point. But that means the reverse is also true. If you have other players who don't feel that spark to GM, you really can't force people to GM. It's not how GMing works, you know? When I say, like, I joke about being a perma GM, it's because I am usually the person who sees a game, goes, ooh, I could run this. And I show the group, like, hey, do you want to play this? I'm you know, a literal drug dealer, but the drug is dopamine. I'm like, hey, isn't this cool? Do you want to play a game where you're wizards? Do you want to play a zombie survival game? Do you want to be a giant robot? I mean, yeah, how many weeks ago was Red Markets? Something been like a month or two.
Did we start
I
playing?
admit I've been busy with a lot of other stuff, so I haven't tried to, like, actually hook you on.
Well, we've always been on the hook for Red Market. We just never really had a good time for it. Cause
yeah, but I mean, I think I had a few of the groups sold on the pitch for Red Markets, but I don't know if we were taking serious looks at the book until, like, actually recently. Like, actually getting into, like, hey, is this game cool? And kind of, you know, figuring out our place for it. If you guys want me to... If X wants me to, like, show him more games to play, my RPG folder is huge. It's free RPG day, by the way, today, I think. But I do have some more new stuff to look at. But, you know, like I said, getting people to GM is not forcible, and so it can be hard. Like, I know Axe has GM'd, but I don't think he's got anything he's super 100% eager that he was definitely like, I absolutely super definitely want to run this. He has offered, for instance, to GM Lancer for us, our own secret tabletop group, but literally in this chat earlier, you were talking, Axe, about how you're like, you still don't know if you feel like you want more guidance on like pacing and stuff. So like that to me says that like you're not like, yeah, I absolutely want to run Lancer. It's like, could run Lancer, but I still, you'd want more guidance on it. Lucky obviously has GM'd for a couple of games, but it's a lot of work, and you don't always have a lot of free time.
No, honestly, I feel like I have to scrap the Grand Voyager game because the more I try to work on it, the more I realize like, that I am slowly twisting it to what I want it to be and not what the players want it to be, and I'm like, this ain't gonna work in the long run.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is officially canceled because like something I noticed while GMing, a lot of traits that you express in playing, you will often express in GMing as well. Like Omega as a GM is, while he will not hold your hand, he will definitely, well, you kind of hold our hand, but he will definitely make sure like you everyone is taken care of, everything's good, very mother hen, den mother. And often enough, you.
Yeah, you're about to say that's how I play games too.
Yeah.
Not just in games you've seen, but also Axe can attest because he was in the D&D campaign we were in off mic for a while. No, and I was the paladin, and I ended up being Team Mom as well.
Yes.
Even though my character was kind of a ditz isn't the right word, but int was definitely my dump stat. So like. I was not smart, but I had a lot of charisma, and as the paladin, I was kind of in the role of like, okay, everybody okay? Everybody all right? You need some healing? Here, you have some lay on hands. You have some lay on hands. Dallas, what did we learn about jumping on the magma elemental? Do it better next time. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't know if I can play another game.
Dallas is Dallas no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
but like,
I assume what you're angling on there. Actually, you're just going to say, go for it.
Yeah, is, like, as I said, I like games with loot, gear, logistics, management, progression, all that stuff. And so usually when I am working on games and stuff, I usually build with those in mind. Like, the Grand Voyager game was supposed to be a game about logistics and management. It's supposed to be about, a bunch of kids, working to find their future in a city that, in a changing city. But as I was working on the next part, I'm just like, wait a minute, why am I designing things so they can upgrade the fucking orphanage, start, getting resources from other things? I'm like, now it's just like, oh.
I really do need to show you, I need to get more into myself, Reign sometime.
Yeah.
It's a one roll engine game written by Greg Stolze where your organization, whatever that is, has stats that you roll in one roll engine fashion.
And so... Like this is the reason why I started working on my my own zombie apocalypse game post Red Marcus. I'm like, no, yeah, I do just because the concept of upkeep just made me go, whoa. And
congratulations, Lucky, you are a tabletop game designer. That's how tabletop game design works. Is you show a game designer a mechanic, and they're like, okay, so obviously this works for this thing that this game is doing. But also, oh my god, there's so many other different things I can do.
Yeah, no, this is why I am playing, one of the mechanics in, my game I haven't got a name at, is going to be your loadout. Basically, every time you start a mission, you get what's in your loadout, you get for free. So you will always have a basic kit of supplies to go with, and everything on top of that is going to be what's in your upkeep. But this is also why you have things if you might always start with a first aid kit and a pistol, but if you want to lug around that assault rifle, you're gonna need to start paying on top of extra that. So I'm like, yes, there's so much to do here, and this is why, and this is what I think about at fucking 2 a.m. at night now. I'm just like, ah. So it's a lot. It's gonna be very crunch heavy and very logistics and managerial, and you're gonna need to fucking write things. There are people who do not write things down on their character sheets or forget about it, and then just like, oh yeah, no, I remembered, when they totally don't, and it's starting to get to me, Omega. It's starting to get to me. I feel like I need to throw an accountant's book at some people.
Yeah. Speaking of different players play different games, there are definitely some people who are just not taking notes.
I'm not gonna name names, Axe.
I mean, we know for a fact, because Loth isn't actually in any tabletop games with us, but we know from Star Wars Loth is not really a note taker on
No.
his character sheet. He is not necessarily super good at keeping all of his stuff in track. Dallas, I think, tries, but Dallas admits he has a shit memory sometimes. He will sometimes write notes to himself and then be like, I don't know what past Dallas was telling me. Which, to be fair, facts.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Looking at our Let's Talk FGO notes, I'm just like, what was I talking about here? That happened, I think, like
Yeah,
twice.
Hell, there were a couple of my bullet point notes I was like, I don't remember what that was. Sometimes I remember the context from like what you were saying in your notes, but there were a couple where I'm just like, yeah, I don't remember exactly why I put this here. I was writing it in the moment, and I wasn't planning on taking like a week break from it.
All right, I officially only need one more Gwib for my fucking Mecha Dragonzoid, and it's gonna be the fucking hardest one to do, which is why have kept putting it off. God damn it.
Yeah, the grind is real.
I'm gonna cry. But no, so that's why I think this is why I want to design this game this way, because it is literally a system that forces you to be at least somewhat meticulous with everything. And that's what I want. I want people to, have to juggle like what they're taking with you. Because again, like Red Markets is fun. I enjoy it. Like I do enjoy it, but at the same time, I feel it's one of those things of all like they could have gone farther with this and they didn't.
Yeah, it's a game that has very, very specific rules and like formulations on it, but also is absolutely built from the design of being kind of for the game designer. When Caleb Stokes wrote it, he picked to make it all player facing for instant because he was just like, fuck it, I don't want to roll dice. I have mixed feelings about games that are like that because on the one hand, that means I don't have to roll dice most of the time. So we don't have to worry about the fact that, so many fights in Star Wars and Genesis, like I wrote cool things in them and then they just don't happen because my dice rolling is so weird. So many success with Threat. And it's just like, well, I guess you guys get to do something cool because I'm just going to punch you for like a lot of damage. Because that's just how the dice work.
I think I'm going to make this game player facing, but I'm going to do something for combat that's just like a GM gets like fucking enemies just have moves that the GM can do. If like a player succeeds, if a player succeeds, the GM can do these moves. If a player doesn't succeed, it can do these other moves. And just do them.
I like that. That's good. That's like Powered by the Apocalypse a little bit.
Yeah.
Very specific responses.
So
it is honestly like I like that you say, if it does succeed, do this. If they fail, do this. That is something where like Powered by the Apocalypse is not for everybody. I like to GM it because I can do that improv thing, thinking on my feet. It's hard sometimes. Like if you guys bomb out a roll and I'm like, oh shit, I have to make a hard move. Well, you bombed out a roll because you were doing a player thing in the middle of nowhere, and it's like I don't have anything prepped for this. What happens? You either cause a tangent or you have to be like, something ominous is happening.
But yeah, no, it's like it's to succeed, like either like if it's in combat, Yeah, no, it's like I think that's what I'm gonna do. I am going to design enemy behaviors. And I'll base them basically on templates. Like maybe they have a swarm mentality, like if someone gets hurt, maybe they call for others for help. Or something like that.
I like this.
Yeah, so
this is not quite though, might end up because I haven't read those parts, but that's kind of how I wrote my notes and classifications in Fork Explore, the space game I'm working on and off again working on. For like creatures, I was like, okay, as a GM, you should think of the creatures as like having behavior types, right? Like, Are they hostile? Are they neutral? Are they, allied? Because you can domesticate creatures, and then think of that like, are they aggressive, passive, defensive? And I could totally see, like, when I actually get to writing example creatures, like, expanding that into that thing you're talking about where, like, maybe a creature has a very specific behavior.
Well, yeah. Because that's the thing I always found about, like, and, like, you are talking about that, like, often enough, when you do, like, a big boss battle, I'm always very disinclined to actually, like, fully engage with it, because I want to see what the creature does. You usually write some weird, cool things. Like, I'm gonna be real. I feel real bad about two-shotting the fucking
The crab.
the crab.
Oh, don't feel too bad. Those guys weren't that deep.
I know, but at the same time, I was just like, I don't know if they had like more under it. It's like, I knew it was like a big armor thing, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna hit it with something heavy, and then I will back off a bit and just see what happens. And I didn't realize I was like that close to just fucking killing it. I was just like, oh.
Wonder. This should just be a GMing thing I need to think about. I'm just like, do I need to be more open about, like, usually I like to telegraph like the halfway point and stuff. Do I need to be more open about what people's wound thresholds are? Because sometimes I feel like just telling you how many wounds there are might put a little of the fear of God in you. I'm just like, this guy, 40 wounds. What are you gonna do?
Panic?
Be like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Shit. Because like you guys figure out like soak values and skill values very easily, so it's not like most of that's hidden. I might actually try. I'm just letting me like, yeah, this. You've just hit this, maybe like after you hit them once. All right, you've just dealt them like 4 wounds. They have 16 wounds left, something like that. So you're like, okay, like 20.
Okay.
That might help a little, like pacing it out. Because I, as a GM, I appreciate that you and oftentimes some of the other players as well are like, okay, I don't want to go full blast if I'm not in danger. Because I want to see what this thing does. Because you're right. I usually try to like, I've GM'd so much and put so many hours into this system specifically. I don't like to write abilities that are just, you take damage. 2 people take damage. You just take a debuff, but no damage. Like, I like to, like, make it flexible, specific things. Like, there are some interesting moves that some of the other guys could do that showed up. Like, when Dallas did his twofer versus the Potato Knights and the Wolf Peach Cutter, the malicious tomato. The tomato had a berserk ability, like literally it had the same effects as the talent to go berserk, but it was a debuff applied. Like, okay, you do a thing with melee attacks, but you can't use ranged or magic now. What do you do? And he's like, okay. That's actually true. Axe did buy an arcane slate. He has the legendary Isekai smartphone now. Look up. I mean, it's a knowledge checks to find out stuff about guys is in checks, so you could always try and roll dungeoneering or something to guesstimate on a guy's strength. Also, I want to put this out before we pop out of here because we're almost at 3 hours and I'm getting thirsty. And also getting thirsty for more Clive. Let's all take a moment to appreciate Clive. But Axe asked earlier, like, what mechanics I'm thinking of for Shadow Wizard game. There's a lot of dice mechanics I like. I'm kind of torn. In my original, like, Dream State idea, I was kind of thinking of it as in using different sizes of dice. Because like that tied into like how words are more powerful, right? If you use one or less, and scaling from D4 to D12 is a 5-point scale. Like if you go, D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. So like that feels good to me. I kind of want to do that, but I'm also not sure because if that's too complex, where you like, all right, I roll, this thing's a D12 value, but this thing's a D6 value, and you just take your highest or maybe take 2. Again, I'd have to work on it because there's a lot of different systems that use that. I also really do just like mono dice pools, D6 dice pools, D10 dice pools. I like exploding dice, like if you roll a 6 on the D6, roll another D6. I like that stuff. So I don't know. No, there's definitely, again, writer's choice. They're definitely dice. You're definitely rolling dice. Like, yeah, if you use the word fire, you can use up to maybe like a D12 worth of fireball. But if you do use a D12, that means you're gonna owe me, the GM, or Magic or whatever, a D12 worth of juice. There probably would be some kind of like mana or MP system where like, hey, if you're juicing too hard, you're gonna burn yourself out pretty fast, buddy. Which is something that the Dresden Files RPG, which is very good. I know they simplified it into the Fate Accelerated version, but the normal full-ass Fate version is very good. Very on point and thematic. But, like, that had a system where if you're a wizard who casts spells, you take them to your mental stress track, and you can cast bigger spells by choosing to take, consequences. Which, just in general, I love that trope. If you can kick your own ass to do cooler shit, I love that. So that will probably, in some way, be a mechanic. It's just a question of, how. because like there's a lot of God. There's so many dumb things people have come up with you can do with dice. But yeah, so like I said, I had some tabletop thoughts about a lot of stuff because we've been skipping a couple weeks, but that's most of what I got out there. I did earlier make that joke about if Lucky read any lately because while my power was out last week, I got through my book backlog, so I have to order some new books, I think.
I
never did get that book that Jim Butcher's son wrote, so if I'm in an urban fantasy Shadow Wizard mood, I should actually read that one. I think, what is it? Is the Olympian Affair, it's September or November, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's later this year, finally. Also, in July, though, book 4 of Daidoji Shin comes out.
Yeah, the boy.
I think it's 3 Oaths. The end of that. I just one of the books I did read was I finally got around to reading Flower Path. That was pretty good and interesting. I like how Josh Reynolds changes the format of the mystery every time because Flower Path is kind of like a closed room mystery. There's a murder at the theater, and so Daidoji Shin has to solve the entire crime before the play is over and everybody leaves.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, Axe, that's not that weird. I know it's dumb when you say it. You made me laugh, but like, I mean, I called it Shadow Wizard game, so like, there's a little bit of meme in it. But okay, all right.
Shadow Wizard money game. I'm done. If you're ready to get out of here.
You're done. All right. Yeah, that's it. All right. We're gonna skedoodle on out of here. Okay. Hey, if you like this video, give it a like. If you have any comments, leave in the comment section down below, or join our Discord. We do stuff there. Video games, anime, books, tabletop, whatever. We got channels for all this shit. Check out our Discord. Make sure to sub to keep getting more videos. Ring the bell for notifications. You always know when we're subbing or when we're streaming. Should be back this... Well, I mean, I don't know. We'll see if we're back this Monday for Hollow Knight or if Lucky and I just take a Final Fantasy 16 day. We'll see.
We
We'll
might. I don't know.
Like I said, we got to feel it out. But, you know, make sure you're subbed and the bell is rung for notifications so you'll be getting streams and new videos and stuff. Consider joining our channel memberships. Get access to membership badges and emotes that you can see displayed on the side there. And like I said at the start, quote unquote, 20 minutes in, consider supporting us on Patreon to get the audio version of this show and our other shows and get access to other fun stuff, like the audio downloadables, the MP3 versions of our actual plays. There was no actual play this week because Dallas was swamped up with something suddenly. Not sure exactly what came up, but something came up because he, didn't have a lot of time, so we didn't do anything tabletop-wise. Hopefully we'll be doing something this weekend, but again, we'll see. Lucky talked about that earlier. We'll figure them out. That's it. That's everything.
All right, everyone. See you next time. Have a good evening and all that. Goodbye.